All right, what's up? What's up, everyone? I'm gonna wait a minute till a couple more people come in here, but so you guys can say whatever you want for the next minute.
All right.
I've been wanting to say this all day. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Awesome.
There you go.
I could say that back in like school and stuff like that.
So if I go down here in the comments or what chat or something, can I? That's private chat. I guess I don't get to see the.
No, you got to go to comments, but you can go on if you pull it up on YouTube, you can comment.
I'm illiterate. I don't know how to do all this stuff. Hang on a minute.
You use StreamYard, don't you?
I do. That doesn't mean I understand how to use it. We're all good. If you read a question in there, just throw it my way.
I usually don't go try to get in there.
I don't either, because usually I'll do it on the phone, but that's acting weird tonight too. So.
All right. Well, I guess I'll just start it because I feel like starting it because sometimes I don't feel like waiting. So tonight's live stream is with Shane and Danny and Shane from Southern Michigan Paranormals. This is a veteran group that's been around in Michigan for many years. According to Danny, it's been 30 years, right?
No.
You said 30.
It's been 15 years. It's been 15.
Okay, well,
years.
So Danny has been doing it for 30 years. Then.
Yeah. I if I were to combine everybody's experience, it might add up to that. But SMP itself started in roughly 2008, 2009. I always argue Deb on that point because honestly, I started doing paranormal investigating like with a secondary person, if you will, right around 2006, and we called ourselves the Paranormals because we were anything but normal. If you would ever be around us, so it moved into a direction where, I decided I wanted to bring some more people on board, and we had a small merger, which I was kind of unsure about, but I thought maybe it was the thing to try. And we had met a person at the Henderson Castle investigation, and I invited this person on, and it went the way I thought it was going to go, which it didn't quite work out. And I still wanted to maintain that person's identity out of a group that he had already established. So when we were together and we merged as a group, we were talking about, what do we rebrand ourselves as? And I said, well, why not just the Southern Michigan Paranormals, and that kind of stuck. And that's how we really got that name. And, we've just been doing things ever since then. But, combined, like we were talking off air about, Deb and both the Debs, they had been with me from day one, but they had gone off and while they were with the group had visited other places outside of the state. So I always kind of counted that as some of the things we did too, because they were there representing our group, doing our thing. But about 15 years, I would say. I think that's what that adds up to now, right? So we're going in maybe, I guess next year be 16, but there's been a lot of changes. Shane came along later in the game, but
I scrambled everything up.
Yeah, well, it took a while to get in the saddle with him, and he came along at a good time, and I always wanted a science guy, like an engineer type of person, that could design some things or look at some of the stuff we have, because, like everybody that starts out in these groups, we had people coming into the fray. Let me back up a little bit. So the group grew as big as 30 people. I had 30 people. And we were trying to do SMP1 and SMP2, and then we sistered a group in Coldwater, which Shane knows about that group.
Yep.
So we had a sister group called SMP Coldwater too. So, it was just my way of reaching out to try to get more done. Figured that we could be in one spot, SMP2, we could have a team somewhere else doing something on a weekend, and then Coldwater was doing their thing, and they were kind of attached under us. And so that was kind of my goal, is just to investigate and try to bring people along a better way of doing things too, which, I'm a student of Jason Sullivan, God rest his soul. He's passed on, but he was the one that wanted to debunk everything first. And then we look for what's left after we go through the science explanation or the common sense explanation of things. And then we can kind of classify where we're at with certain things happening. And, I will say after a certain amount of years, we kind of lost our way. Shane came in about that time, and we were just fumbling and bumbling. And I openly admit that. I'm transparent about that. And even I was starting to lose sight of what we were doing. And we just had to reorganize, and now we're back on track. So I think that's kind of the history of SMP. I mean, we'd done the podcasting thing. We had done the TV thing. All the radio shows all over the place. We've been here, done that. Most of the places everybody's looking at, we've been there, but it's an exciting thing. It's still an exciting thing that some of that stuff is still open to the public and some of it isn't. But that's been the growth. That's the story of where we are. And like I said, I've had a lot of people come and go, and there's been heartbreak with people that have come and gone. You know how the paranormal field is. And you have people who are there 1 minute and then they want to go do their thing, or unfortunately, some people get a big head or egos get in the way, and then the next thing you know, they're walking out and they're going off to do their stuff. And I will tell you, most of the people that did that left our group are not even doing anything in the paranormal at this juncture. So I'm pretty happy that I've tried to keep at least the ideal alive. But I think this year, with Shane's help, I'm going to get with him more and get with Noah more and a few other members, that we just really want to bring it back together and kind of get back to where we were. I don't aspire to do what we did before, because again, we were there. We already did that stuff. I just want to get back into investigating and have fun. And the fun is the key part of it.
Yes.
All right. So since we got Danny rambling on here, can you go ahead? I'm going to put this up here because I said I was going to do this. Can you explain a little bit about this Ghost Aroma event that's coming up for everyone that's paranormal in like Michigan or the surrounding Midwest?
This is an idea that, as you see at the bottom there, it's a picture of the Hartford Poorhouse Museum, or the Van Buren County, Historical Society is housed there. And we have been working with them again for quite a few years. Shane has been in and out of there too. So chime in when you get a chance. Chime in, yeah. We had been talking to them for quite a few years about doing a paranormal meet and greet. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I was attending one down in Indiana for years called the Hannah House, and they're still doing it. It took about a year sabbatical. I wasn't able to make it out this year, but I had started attending that, and I said, why are we not doing this in West Michigan? There are groups that do events at like the Mill, which are east of here, and there's groups doing things here and there, but there's really not like an open meet and greet. Like, whether you get along with the other groups that might be there or not was what we were trying to bridge in Indiana, and that's what I want to do with this, is that at least people are there, and maybe you'll walk over to the table and you'll start talking. So there's this ideal of unity that's behind it too, that we'll never achieve it, but we can at least keep trying to get everybody to just start talking and getting along. It's free to the public. The other part that we wanted to attach to this event was that for $5 per person, you get to take a tour of that museum. That museum blows me away.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I've been in the Kalamazoo County Museum. I've been in Grand Rapids, and even though those are great places, this one, to me, speaks a little louder because everything has been volunteered from people from different counties, mostly Van Buren, but about 4 or 5 surrounding counties. And there's a lot of famous stuff in there. If anybody knows who Edgar Bergen is, there's a display there. This is a gentleman in the 30s, 20s, 30s, and 40s who was on radio. And if you remember the guy with the little ventriloquist that had the monocle and the top hat, that was Edgar Bergen. And then, of course, his wife, Candace Bergen, or it's not his wife, his daughter, Candace Bergen, became an actor. But he's from the Hartford area. They got a school out there that's named after him. So, and there's famous clown stuff in there, World War II. I could go on and on. But back about the event. So, what we're planning to do is have everybody out on the grounds. We have huge grounds for it. $5 a person, you can take a tour of the house. That's how the museum will make some money. They'll sell some merchandise and do their thing. The vendors will pay $35 just for a space, a 10 by 10 space, which is really affordable. That's people selling items. If they got artwork, metaphysical stores. I've reached out to quite a few. So they'll be down there. I tell everybody to bring a canopy because they'll, weather, we want to make sure rain or shine, we're going on. We got music lined up. I got a local guy who does some bluegrass and folk music. Charlie's just a great individual. He's going to be there. I'm also, they said they're about 89% sure that they're going to be here. It's a group which is called the Tomb of Nick Cage, and Missy Mooney and everybody are looking to come up, and we're going to have them here, and they're like a grunge metal rock horror music band.
Awesome.
And I've played their music on my shows, on my podcasts, and they've been featured in some major picture, motion pictures, some horror movies. So we're going to have them there. We're going to have a car show. So folks, if you want to come out and see the Mach 5, everybody know what that is? Speed Racer, the old cartoon, the Mach 5. Well, you'll be able to see a real one. It'll be there. We'll have the Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine. This one I think is the most accurate that I've ever seen built.
Wow.
It looks just like it's right out of the cartoon. And several other cars. We'll have a lot of ectos there. We'll have the Great Lakes Ghostbuster Coalition will be in attendance. And, the guys will be suited up. But, the draw is going to be the paranormal groups. And, of course, I'm not doing this alone. I want to mention Jerry Jadlowski, who's my partner in this. And Jerry heads up a thing every year called How to Halloween in Lansing. And he also does Frankenfest. And we're going to bring portions of Frankenfest, kind of pieces of that in with this too, so that you'll have classic horror monsters there too. And hence the Headless Horseman guys on the poster. You'll see a life-size stand-up of that there on display. That's why I had him put it on the poster. So it's a combination of Comic-Con, paranormal meet and greet, several different things. And we want to bring something to the area, because where you're at, Tommy, where Shane's at and I'm at, there's nothing really huge. I mean, there's some Ren fairs and different things going on, but I figured this would be the one that this would be the first year we try to grow it. We try to bring people in, and that's all there is to it. It's free to the public, but we would like to get vendors. So if you folks are out there are vendors, anybody who's a vendor, you want to sell some goods, you want to have a table, it's $35. That is cheap. If you go and price tables or space at any other cons in the state of Michigan, you're paying a lot more than that. Just bring a canopy and you're all set. So I guess that's it. The after hours ghost hunt. So once the event's done, goes from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. There's an after hours ghost hunt, and Shane will be part of that crew, and we'll be taking some folks. We're going to keep the numbers limited, see how we're going to price that package, and then we'll take people through. Did I freeze up? Looks like my picture froze up. I'll just keep talking.
I can still hear you.
But we're going to take people through on a ghost hunt. I think we're going to start about 9:00, maybe 7, maybe 7:30, 9:00. We're still toying with what we're going to do there. Do a couple hours, and then that'll be it.
You want to tell them if they're interested, how to hit you up and get information about.
Well, if you go to my Facebook, you can find it advertised there. But if you go to Southern Michigan Paranormals on Facebook, you'll find it posted there. I'm going to keep posting it every week. I'll have it up for a day or two. You'll find it there. Or what you want to do is also look for Ghostorama on Facebook. We have our own Facebook page. So go to Ghostorama Facebook, and you will have info there, and there'll be shared pictures. I know that Tommy is amongst some of the special guests we have that we just advertised. So Tommy's a special guest there. Investigator. We've got Midwest. All of us from Midwest will be representing. Drew there with History's Living's Mysteries. Randy's Real Paranormal. I could go on a whole list. So, even if Shane wanted to, have Studio 6 there, we could talk to him and have him come over too. So, that's what we want. We want paranormal people, so people come in and talk to all of us, see how we operate similar, how we operate different, and just get to know everybody.
All right. So like I said, all this information he said, I'm going to drop the link to the Facebook page in the bio after this. All the other information about these two guys are in the description as well. But since Danny's been talking a lot, Shane, do you want to tell a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how you kind of started with SMP, I guess?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in paranormal, I don't know, probably 4 years now, something like that, maybe a little bit more. And I kind of got started pretty much by accident. A friend of Dan's and I were together, and then we were doing some random stuff, and then finally he was like, "Hey, my friends do paranormal stuff. You want to come check it out? You do all the science thing. You have all these circuits and stuff. Come see what they do." And I was like, paranormal, maybe. But anyways, eventually I ended up going there, and I went to an investigation. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then I started thinking about, well, what could I do to make this more science-like and less just kind of, talking to the air kind of thing. And so, being the electronics guy that I am, I started developing some sensors and some things. And at first, I was using, standard EMF meters, just like everybody else does. And I was like, this stuff is way too expensive. You have to pay attention to it all the time. You can't just set it down and walk away. You got to
right.
looking at it, messing with it, and you spend more time fiddling with the gadgets than you do actually ghost hunting. And so I came up with the idea to build the board that does all the logging and everything for us. And then that really worked pretty good. And I started actually getting some stuff with that. And then Dan and I talked about kind of making a smaller group that was more focused on the science and, the actual, not, I wouldn't say debunking, which is what actually happens, but more look at it from the science than from the spiritual side.
Yep.
And so we started doing that. And, the data logging has been good. We found some strange correlations at times. So that's, it's been pretty good with that. Soon I will be having more capabilities added to the board. We're going to have real-time monitoring very soon. So while we're right there, we'll be able to actually see what's happening. So it'll be a little more interactive sessions than just sitting there staring at the lights on the board waiting for something to happen.
Yeah. So how does that work? Because I remember when we did that one room at the Hotel Nichols,
Yep.
you had to set it all up, and then it started, and then you had to stop it, and then you had to go and pull it up on your put it in your computer.
Yeah.
And then
So what's going to happen is it'll still do that. So it's logging on a thumb drive for later, but very soon you'll be able to plug it into the actual laptop and actually see, how many hits we've had recently, what the average for the values were, some kind of an alert if values change more than a certain amount, things like that. So basically, as you're doing your EVP session or whatnot, you can actually have some reasonably live interaction with it, aside from still logging all the data for, deep analysis later.
Okay. And then can you explain like some of these features that are on this device to like people?
Oh, yeah, sure. So the device.
This is some crazy stuff.
Yeah. So the idea was to prevent having to have an entire van load of equipment, and so, you're getting things like temperature, barometric pressure, humidity, dew point for the basic environmentals, ions, positive and negative ions, beta and gamma radiation, ultraviolet light, visible light, infrared light. It's got a 360-degree motion sensor on it. It's got a ultrasonic radar. So not only can you sense motion, but you can tell how far away from the board it was. It's got magnetic, of course, EMF sensor like a standard EMF meter has. It's got a magnetic field sensor. You can even tell which way is north when it's sitting there. It has accelerometers and gyroscopes. So if somebody wiggles the board, shakes it, tilts it, lifts it up, it'll show all those movements. It does quite a bit, and it logs every sensor every second with a timestamp. And it also makes a beep sound when it starts recording, so that if you're recording with a video camera, that beep gives you the signal on the film, so you can synchronize the film with the board. So if you see a reading, 3 minutes and 10 seconds in that looks strange, you can go into the video, go 3 minutes and 10 seconds past the beep, and you're exactly in the same spot in the video. So now you can say, okay, what was going on? Because I always videotape with a wide angle, high definition camera. So I have, video, audio, and all the sensors all in one together. And then I keep all of that data. I have every byte of data I've ever taken at any investigation. I have it all cataloged and logged.
And how long did it take you to like design this device? Like,
wow, I probably have a couple 100 hours in it.
100 hours?
couple hundred hours.
Yeah, I could see it.
You know, and a lot of it's programming too. I mean, not only did I have to solder and build all the circuits and all that to start, but then I had to write all the software for it, because it's actually got two parts. It's got a Raspberry Pi, which is the main computer, and then it's got an Arduino, which is the subcomputer, and they both talk to each other, you know, and they work together. So there was a lot of software and a lot of trial and error and experimentation and testing, hours of testing. So, but it's a pretty solid product now. I mean, it's running good, and once I get the real-time capabilities, it should boost it even more. I don't know, maybe eventually if I get enough interest, I could, you know, patent or whatever, and then, you know, turn it over to a manufacturer to make them, because they're too slow to make by hand. I mean, the amount of hours you put in that, you'd have to charge astronomical amounts of money for the thing. But
right. And so how many
Huh?
Go ahead.
I was just saying, and so basically, you know, unless it was commercialized, it would be too hard to hand build these things for any number of people, you know?
Yeah, because I was telling you, I was like, why haven't you made like this where you can like sell these and stuff? But is it
Well,
just
and
it just
could
takes
be a
too
thing.
long?
It's just too much work. I mean, hours and hours and hours of soldering. Now, of course, once the software is written and stuff, it would be less time than the original development, but still, I mean, you would have weeks building one. So,
I was gonna say, so like, when did you like how many investigations have you used that on? Like, is it recent, like the past couple of
yeah,
years?
I've
Or like,
probably done more than 20 with it.
okay,
And, you know, and I've done some big ones. Like I was out at the Friar School. I'm going to be doing Hinsdale House here in April. So I've been doing that. I've hit the poorhouse several times. I've done the State Theater. I've done quite a few. I've been out in Iowa, a couple different places. I went to the Oberlin, Ohio, to that house there, and you know, we did an investigation. So, you know, it's found some strange things. I mean, like we did the Farrar School one. While it was there, it really didn't find too much. But then a few weeks later, when I was doing a private residence, I was talking to these residents about, you know, the board and stuff, and they'd asked me, well, where'd I went before, and so I was telling them about the school, etc. And then, of course, when I got done with the investigation, I went back and looked, and there was, you know, some changes in the magnetic field and then the radiation fields. So I went back to the video to look on and see what was going on, and it's like, oh, literally the 2 minutes and 10 seconds that I was talking about the Friar School, I was getting these readings again, kind of similar to what I was getting at the school. And I was like, that's a little bit of odd coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
So then I kind of didn't think much of it. And then probably a month later, I was at a cemetery doing an investigation with a friend, just kind of a impromptu. And again, for a couple minutes, had talked about, you know, that school again, just kind of giving the little story. And then it's like, wait, look, we got changes in radiation and changes in magnetic fields again, right at exactly the same time, within the seconds of the time that I was talking about it. And this lasted for minutes at a time. So, you know, a couple minutes at a time. So I don't know if something followed. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something weird. Or if it just, when you mention it and you're that far away, it can still sense you. I don't know what the issue was, but you know, we've had that 2-3 times now where you talk about that and then you go look at the data and you're like, wait a minute, that was only the time I was talking about that. I get this. So there are some weird things that I've never been able to explain that have happened. And so I just keep plugging along and trying to think of new things to add to it. And
I've only been present, I think, for probably one of those, and that was when we were on the LST 393.
Yeah, and that was awesome.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to bring up. But you would explain it better than me. But I will tell you, if anybody's ever seen the movie Final Countdown, there are elements of what was going on there that seemed very similar to me.
Yep.
Yeah, real weird.
So wait, so that's how I got started.
Danny, how many times have you been around this device or witnessed it? Is that you just the one time?
It's been a couple. Yeah, it's been a couple. I've seen it several times. We've used it several times at the poorhouse, the ship, Henderson Castle. You had it there, And
It was
then
at Hotel Nichols.
Hotel Nichols, yeah, twice. Yeah, twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we did it 4 years ago. But the ship is still the one that, as I said, I mean, I don't want to go on and take up a bunch of time, but the story quickly. The story quickly is that Shane, you explain it better.
Yeah,
than
I'll
I do.
do it. So there was a couple of things that happened there, but the most important one was me being a ham radio and electronics guy. You know, I was up in the communications and map room for the ship, up by where they navigate, etc. And while I was in the radio room for the ship, I realized that the ship's antennas outside were all still hooked up. And so I was like, interesting. So I went out to my car and I grabbed my ham radio and I grabbed my laptop and I connected it to those antennas on the ship. And this is, you know, in the early evening, wasn't even dark yet, really, at this point. And I'm just kind of tuning around, and up on the wall in the map room were the old frequencies from the maritime, you know, back in the World War II times. So I started tuning my ham radio to those old frequencies. In modern times, those are ship frequencies still in use today, normally be commercial shipping. And so the thing that strangely happened was towards evening, we started getting a thunderstorm come in off Lake Michigan. Well, I'm sitting there listening to this thing, and then I realized that whenever the lightning would go, instead of normal white noise or ship traffic that you would get on those frequencies, I would start hearing an old time preacher. You know, he's like, and God said, you know, the old power preacher, you know, with the Bible holding it up and shaking his hands, you know.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was one of those kind of preachers. And he's preaching, and then as soon as the lightning would stop and it would fade out, he would go away into the noise. And then a few minutes later, another big lightning flash, and then he'd come back again. And then a little bit later, we started getting things where it was like, you know, emergency, we've been hit kind of things. And, you know, all kinds of just like military sound and radio traffic mixed in with the noise. And as soon as the lightning would go away, it would go away. And it was just the white noise of the atmosphere. So,
yeah. And as you were
and I
telling
recorded
me,
all of it.
you recorded it. Yeah. And it shouldn't be there. It should not be there.
Yeah. Those frequencies are not for preachers or anything like that. Those are military and commercial shipping frequencies.
Yeah, and I don't want to overemphasize the excitement that you had, Shane, but I sat down next to him, and I remember him. He's kind of sitting like this at the table next to me, and he sat straight up. He goes, "I hear you. Can you repeat those coordinates?" I remember that exactly.
Yep.
And then he said,
"Yeah, because they were given ship coordinates."
Yeah, somebody was responding to him.
Probably from D-Day.
Oh man, I'm telling you, man, weird shit. It was weird.
It was on Normandy at D-Day.
Yeah, he let me listen for a second, and I agree. It's this shit that shouldn't be there. And I remember you looking at me like, "Well, Holroyd, what is that?" I'm like, "You're the one that built this stuff. I don't know what you're doing. Well, how am I supposed to know what this is supposed to be?" So I don't want to call it paranormal. I don't. I mean, I want to, but I don't. If that makes any sense to anybody, because that's just, I think we're jumping the gun, but I don't know if there's a rational explanation for that. I just don't. He knows what he's doing. This guy knows what he's doing with ham radio and stuff. This is his thing. Yep. So I'm still excited about that.
Yeah,
it's too cool.
So we've had some pretty neat times with the technology.
Yeah.
So so Dan, you were saying, how many investigations has SMP done over the years?
As of the Hotel Nichols thing, that's 288 investigations. And that's from when we started as SMP. There were a few from a couple of years before, but I don't add those. And some people find that ridiculous, but Shane knows, because he knows the early history. You know, we've talked a lot together, that we were doing investigations when I started this group every weekend. We grew to 30 people, not just me. I had them doing multiples. We'd go into a town like Vicksburg. We did Vicksburg, and we had 7 buildings, and I'd have 2 crews investigating. We did Howell. That's how I turned out doing the Howell tours, is we had 13 buildings, and then I wanted to do them different weekends going in towards fall and winter. And I would take the crew out there, and I would have 2 teams rotating in town, and we'd do 2 to 3 buildings a night. So I got way ahead of myself, got really, I guess I look back at it now like I was really ambitious, I guess is the word. but we were getting a lot done. And I had to have a talk, or I didn't have the talk. My wife had a talk with me, as did other members of the opposite sex and partners with other team people, that, it'd be nice for us to see our kids before they graduated college, because we were gone every damn weekend. I mean, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then we do emergency stuff because we early on said that we would respond to things that other teams might turn down. Now, I want to remind everybody too, this is when the influx Ghost Hunters had hit the air, Sci-Fi's running the show. Now it exploded. So when they knew there were teams around, people would call up with emergencies in the middle of the night, and I'd have people show up. Johnny and Denise, I'll throw out some names, would show up at my house, said that we got a call for a case and we're going, get your clothes on. And I had to work the next day. I was pulling 60, 70 hours a week doing corporate security. So we do them in the week too, man. We did a lot of stuff. And then I think then I decided, well, maybe we should start doing private investigations, a little more personal, even though we would respond to emergency situations. Because once we hear kids, we went running. That's because we wanted to put everybody in a believable box. But what we found out too, I know I'm jumping around, but what we found out too was you got to be careful, because some people just, they think they have a haunting. They want to have a haunting. They tell you all sorts of stuff. You get there with your equipment and you're doing what Shane had said, we're trying to cross the T's and dot the I's first before we look at other stuff. And it was just a tough thing. But we then got involved in private investigations. And the first one I ever did was in Saugatuck. And that just kind of got a little strange too. But it's, we were every weekend, man, we were busy. And so I just kept adding them up. And I got a filing cabinet that's about 4 foot tall. And, I was just starting reports for Hotel Nichols, because I'll write hard copy reports about who was there, what we did, what we saw, what we might have heard. Shane has sent me reports, which I've copied, and I've put them in these folders, and I've identified them. And it sits there. But what it sits there for is if we go to other places and we're having something similar, because I was going to pull something out here recently and compare it to something that we did a while back, because I'm looking for similarities. And then when we share those similarities to other groups and other people who might go there, or if we're working on another case, that kind of gives us more ground to put forth a better hypothesis on what we think might be going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you if you actually documented your investigations that you even if you, like you said, wrote them down or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't even know how you could keep track with all that.
It's tough. Shane will tell you, I was kind of a hard ass about that for the longest time, and I'm still a little bit like that. So the one thing that I like with Shane and the group, we've got to sit down and have a meeting, because I want to get back to that. Because what I want is everybody just to record what you've seen, what you've heard, whether something happened or not. And we've got it on record. For me, doing paranormal investigating, I think if you're going to be worth your salt, I don't think you have to do it, but I think it's a wise idea that you keep track of all the places you've been. And if you're looking to, like I said, to do places and things seem to come off very similar, then you have something to go back to look at and say, we had 75 degrees in this room. What was the weather conditions like? Because we keep track of that too. It's like, well, we had a full moon. We're in a full moon series. About 3:45 in the morning, this started to happen. And here I am at a place that's completely opposite on a different side of the state. And some of those conditions are lining up. And then we can start offering that up to other groups that, there is a weather connection. There's a geographical connection with underground quartz and water and all sorts of crazy stuff. Same stuff that Shane's doing with his board. There's analytics. I'm trying to do a hard copy cheat version of the analytics in such a soft way. But I like that he's got the board, because now that kind of takes the place of us having to do some of that. Yep. So he keeps track of that stuff. But I still think it's important. When you did law enforcement and security work, you'd keep a notepad on you. And when something would happen to you, you'd stop for a minute and write it down, because later on you'll forget about things. Yep. And later on something might poke up in your video or your audio, and you can go back and say, oh man, I remember writing that down and I didn't hear a damn thing at 1:25, but apparently on the recorder at 1:25 in that room, here's this guy yelling at us.
Yep.
Just that type of stuff. It's just to corroborate what you're doing. And I think if other groups look at you, which they do, I don't ever think that other people aren't watching your work or studying what you're doing out here. I call it the peers, out in the field. they watch what you're doing. If they see that you're doing some of that stuff, you're, again, I'll use the term crossing the T and dotting your I's as best that you can, then they take you a little more serious, and they're not the first people to start yelling at you and throwing hate at you, because we know how that works in this
we
circle.
don't want hate.
We don't want hate. Nobody wants to hate, man.
I was gonna get to something, but Fish asked, I don't know what he exactly means by this, but he says, do y'all think a lot of people are mental that hear things? I don't know if are you meaning that, Fish, by like investigations, or like what do you? I'm assuming he's meaning investigations. Like, this could get into a lot of things. It could be into like.
How would you handle that, Shane? How would you handle that?
Well, I mean, one of the things that most investigators do, especially if it's a private residence, is to, kind of question the people that live there and say, hey, what kind of drugs do you take? What kind of, mental issues? Things that you have to be gentle, of course. But
yeah,
if you got somebody that's on, a whole list of psychedelics, and then they're telling you they're seeing things coming out of the walls and stuff, you're like, yeah, maybe not. Maybe you need to go see the psychiatrist.
And I asked him to answer that, because Shane sent me a list, which we have to print out. He sent me a whole list of stuff that we used to use, which were they were questionnaires, they're ident pads, what I call them, where you'll ask some of the questions 2 or 3 different ways, to see if the answer is going to remain the same. He said he already covered it. The biggest one is, is anybody here on any kind of medication? Anybody being treated for mental illness? And you have to gauge their honesty. And, I've been to a case where they're telling me no, then I look at a TV tray next to the TV and it's loaded with pill bottles. And then they start telling you the truth, or you find out that there's social situations that aren't quite key. There's a lot of, it's a big answer to that question, but we try to be careful about whether or not we think somebody's actually having something happen.
Sure. Yep.
And if they're a little mentally ill, that doesn't mean I'm not going to still take a look at the case, because I don't want to be the guy to say, well, we worked one where the person was a little schizophrenic, but there were some things happening while I was sitting there interviewing her. So I didn't quite know where to go with it,
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to make it safe for the crew. I want to make it safe for that person. And, they can turn into stalkers too, rather quickly.
Yeah.
I've had that happen too.
What? Stalkers?
Oh yeah. You get attachments that aren't spiritual.
Yeah. That's the people that you go interview and you're telling me can't help you. And I had a lady chasing me through town for quite a long time back in the early going on, because we were putting phone number and our card out there, and I had to change my phone number. That's a true story. And my wife's like, that lady's going to find you in a corner and kill you. So it's just, that's when, you had to realize that, you do email or other, Facebook or something in order to communicate, and you just be very careful about what you're doing.
Yeah. Don't give out your private information.
What do you guys, I guess this kind of goes along with it, but what do you guys think about like mediums or empaths and stuff like that? Do you think they're full of shit, or do you think there's something to it? Like, they're born with it, or all that jazz?
Holroyd start that one and I'll finish it.
Wait, what? Danny? Okay.
I'm more of a mind with Shane than he thinks I am on that, even though I won't say I proclaim, but I tell people I've got it. I'm sensitive. There's been times that I've done it in front of the crew or some of the people in the team, because I want them to see that I truly can hit on stuff, and I let it happen when it happens. I pick up on most everybody I meet. Like you, when I met you, Tommy, I picked up on stuff and I didn't share. But I'm a believer, but I'm also probably like Shane in the skeptic world, where there's a lot of them I'm just going to swear here, they're full of shit. And, I met so many people over the years that would tell me this stuff, and they'd want to be my friend or be offered to help us, and we'd take them out and I'd work with them. But I would throw certain things in their way to see where they were, like a test, to do certain things. And there were a couple of people that got angry with me, and I couldn't use them in the group, and I told them why. And there's a lot of people who claim to have it. I don't know if they want it so bad, or they need the attention, or why they're doing it. There's probably 2 that I can count. Well, 3 that I can count on my hand that I've, over this 15-year period, that I've talked to and worked with, that I would trust. Like, I'd trust them with my eyes closed. Other people, it's a story until I see you do something, and you could show me that you're doing something. I don't know if I put a lot of stock in it. Hans Holzer did. And I think that he was right because he had the right people. He had the right tools and the right people to talk to and work with. But you got to be careful, man. There's phony balonies doing this stuff in this field too, all day long.
I think it's just a quick cash grab or just to get the attention, like you were
Some
saying
of them
earlier.
do. Yeah,
some of it
do.
definitely monetized.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a friend that does that. She quit her job to make money doing what she does, but she helps people. She's the true thing. So I'm not going to bash people who are doing what they're doing. I don't know. I don't know if I think every group needs to have one, because if you go and look, when we started SMP, there was probably 4 groups in Michigan. You go look now, there's probably 1,000 or more.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
And it seems like every other group's got 2 or 3 people who are psychic mediums, and they're going around touching things and doing stuff. And I've done it too. I've done it in front of Shane. I feel like an ass sometimes doing it, but I'm just in a really tough spot because you could think I'm full of crap as the next person, but I try to do things to show you that I'm not, if that makes any sense too. Because I wanted Shane to believe me. So, I've tried to do some stuff in front of him.
I'm a hard case. So
he's a hard case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shane, what do you think about all that in a nutshell?
I have a couple friends, Dave and Brandon, that are one's an actual clinical psychologist, and he does, his day job is to, evaluate people for mental illness, et cetera, all kinds of stuff. And the other guy, he's a biochemist. So these guys are PhD level people. And those guys and I do stuff through the universities. And we did a study. We actually went to Oberlin, Ohio, and we went to one of those. We actually contacted them and scheduled an event with one of the Healing Light Church groups. That is a psychic, group, Reiki healers, the whole bit. I mean, every
the Reiki. Yeah.
This is a crazy place. So we went there. And literally this is a church-like room filled with crystals and incense and these big copper pyramids with, glowing lights on them, all this kind of stuff. And we scheduled 3, we told them, give us your 3 best psychics. And one of them was actually one of the pastors there at this light church. And so these people are, that's what their whole life is doing nothing but psychic readings, healings, Reiki, all this, meditation, all this stuff. Right. So we're thinking this is going to be the gold mine. So we set up an official day. We had the entire day at this facility. I brought the board with me. I brought it connected to a plasma globe, like you see at Spencer's Gifts, where you touch your fingers on it and a little electric ball.
Yeah, I've seen those many times.
We have the board can actually interface with one of those. So if an entity or a person touches the globe, the board will register a strength. How hard did they touch it, etc. So anyways, we took this whole mechanism, and both of us went there, and we met up with these people. We had a good long discussion with them. We talked a little bit about what they do and whatever. And then we set up a controlled study where literally we kept all of them in the other part of the building. And we put and I asked them, okay, what is the most energy active part of your facility? And they said, well, right here in the healing chamber, which was basically a great big copper pyramid, maybe 10 feet tall, had a chair sitting in the middle of it with crystals hanging inside. And the idea was a person to be healed could pay their money. They could sit in that chair, and a couple of these Reiki healers or priests would pray over them and give them all kind, and feed energy into them and heal them. That was supposed to be what happens. So I put my board on that chair right in the center of this thing, plugged it in, started recording. And then we had scheduled half-hour sessions. So we brought the individuals down one at a time. They sat in a chair probably 10 feet from the board outside of the copper triangle or copper pyramid. And their goal was using whatever method that they could use, without physically going near the board. And of course, we videotaped the whole thing. So we have the recording. There's no way they could get near the board. They couldn't touch it. They couldn't do anything to it. And they were trying to focus on it and either try to influence the globe, influence any of the sensors, change the energy in the room, change the temperature, change anything that they could change by focusing their thoughts or whatnot on this device. Well, we went through 3 of them, and then, in a random order, we actually used a roll of the dice to decide who was going to go first, so nobody could have something pre-canned or whatever. And so they went down there one at a time, monitored session with the video, and they did their thing. Then we collected the thumb drive from it, and I went upstairs and we did some analysis, a little bit light analysis on site, and then we did deep analysis when we got back to our hotel. And basically, from what I could see, some of the most flatline, lowest, commonest readings, like if you just took the thing and set it in your living room and just left it sit there, even less than that. It was more like you took it out in an open field in the middle of nowhere and set it up and let it sit there. And that's what the readings were like. There wasn't no bumps, no spikes, no changes, no nothing. Nothing.
And I think what operates for most of those people doing that work, and again, it's not to be rude to them, is that we know it as a psychological placebo. It's positive thinking will do amazing things for your mind.
Yeah, they think,
there's a famous story.
They just gave up, $50 to sit in the chair probably helped their health a little bit.
Yeah, there's a famous story. This really happened. So this guy went to work on this refrigerator unit that was on the back of a semi-trailer. And the door shut on him and he got trapped inside. And so he thought he was going to die. So he started scrolling messages on the wall as he's trying to get out, right? So within a matter of a day or two, I think it was 3 days or 4 days, people opened the door and he's in there dead. Now, what's amazing about that story is that he talked himself into dying because it was 50 degrees in there. He had plenty of air. The air conditioner unit was broken. It wasn't cold. He wasn't freezing. He just thought he was going to freeze to death and die in there. So he did. And that's a true story. So my thought process on a lot of that stuff, like I said, we could have debates and arguments all day long on some of these folks, about whether they're doing harm or they're doing good work. I think generally they're all out trying to do something positive. They're making a buck on what they do, hey, do your thing. I think if they were straight out gypsies, which I think I've met 1 or 2 of those here in Michigan, they're doing their thing. But I think positivity for people who are just so desperate for healing and finding direction, maybe some of that stuff works for them. But, as Shane said, being a person of what I feel that I do and what I know that I have, I'm still tough on that too. I often wonder, am I crazy? Am I picking up things? But, I don't know. I don't want to bash all of them, but then there's a lot of it that I don't believe in.
Yeah, like I say, if any place or thing or whatever could possibly do it, it seems like that environment would have been the place. I mean, it was in their environment,
right,
in their energy pyramid, their top people. While we were talking during the interviews, they're all like, "Oh yeah, this will be easy. We'll be able to influence that. Change temp, no problem." All this stuff. I mean, they're telling us, and we're talking to them. No.
Yeah, and I remember him sharing the story with me before, and I said, "Well, what you guys should really do is find do like 3 or 4, and then see if you get somebody out of those 3 or 4."
I didn't expect much, but I expected something. I mean, the only temperature changes I saw came from the HVAC unit because you could see exactly every like 12 minutes it would raise like 3 degrees. And they go right back down.
There's always natural. Yeah,
You'd always see that stuff. But as far as like no energy, no ions, no radiation, no light changes. I mean, nothing changed. And just, this is a controlled environment. And these people are in there alone with the thing.
Right. And me to speak on the other side of that, I'd say, that's one study. Again, I would say go across the board and do many more. I'm not defaulting, Shane. I that's how you should conduct any of that stuff. But like I said, there's been incidents, which are logged to be believable by people that do what Shane does, over periods of time in the history of man, that people were apothecaries. They were able to manipulate energy fields. I mean, I know Amazing Randy, who I couldn't stand. He was just a skeptic no matter what. But, even he had to admit that there were some people who could, they could, they could modify and do things that would what's the word I'm looking for here? They could control certain things around us in the atmosphere. They had some sort of gift. As far as being 100% psychic and all the stuff you see on TV, I'm of a mind that a lot of people are doing cold readings, because we're not there to see what's going on behind the scenes with the cameras. Same could be said with all the ghost hunter shows, but that doesn't mean I'm still not a believer, because I am. But I still try to be a skeptic at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm about 80-20. I'm about 80% skeptic, about 20% believer. And it varies a little bit from time to time, but basically that. Just enough weird things happen to keep me going.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
sometimes it's like, why in the hell am I doing this? I went to 5 investigations and ain't got jack crap. And then it's like, then you'll hit one, you'll be like, that's a little weird, and I can't figure it out. I ain't seen nothing in the video, and I don't know, but so.
As I said, Shane, and Shane knows I've said this at lectures. To listen to me, you'd think every place I go, something's happened and everything's haunted. When really, I would tell you that it's not. That's probably 20%.
Yeah,
I may be even hitting it high. So there's a lot of places we go that I feel like Shane. I'm like, why did I spend 18 hours in here? Nothing's going on. We get absolutely nothing. I had the great opportunity to be in a cool place and be in a place,
the history and seeing things.
But nothing happened, and I go home and I'm like,
cool
screw that place. But then I go to the next one, or it could be months later we go to something that we don't think we're getting anything at, especially cemeteries, and then you go in there and a damn 3-ring circus is happening, and you're just like, why are all my instruments going nutty, and things just seem to happen. And it's just, for me, I am much like Shane. It's just like I have a level of expectation, but I don't try to set it too high anymore, just because not every place is haunted. Just because it's got a history. Even the Hotel Nichols.
Right.
I figured something was going to happen. You guys would pick up something. Something. I don't even care if it was just small, but if you didn't, I'd be like, that's cool too, because it's still a cool place and it's got a history. But I don't know. I'm all over the place on this now. I've changed over the years.
Yeah, I remember at the Hotel Nichols when I was a little bit frustrated when it didn't seem like a lot happened, but it ended up being pretty well. I have to say this new video that's coming out tomorrow that we did at the Olympia bookstore in Dowagiac. Drew's video's up. Mine comes tomorrow. I don't know when Randy's should be soon. I would have to say, out of all the indoor locations that we've done, that was probably like the least amount of activity that I got. But it was still a good video. It was still a good investigation nonetheless. But just like Danny was saying, like, all these places are not going to be, you can't expect going in there that like insane crap's going to happen. That's not the case.
Best thing I was ever told, and this was told to me by Jason Hawes himself through a text, is that, he assimilated it to like a dog, and you coming to a house and that dog has lived there for years and you're a stranger. And it could be that, like this with let's say the paranormal, the dead. So there might be something there. And I come to the door. Well, they rush to the door to meet me, and all sorts of stuff is happening. And all night we have great stuff. But there could be times too that same dog is just like, listen, I don't know who these people are, but I'm not going to come out and talk. I don't feel like communicating or doing anything. Or there's just nothing there. Even though I tell people that the dead outnumber the living, which is a very true mathematical fact, and Shane knows how bad I am at math. It's not every place has something, and just because you come out there once too doesn't mean that you should.
Or just because some other ghost group said, yeah, that place is haunted.
Exactly. Then we sound like, then sometimes we come off like we're trying to prove them wrong.
Like, we just ruined all their cool videos because they're like, we went there and didn't see jack crap.
Yeah, I know Tommy's involved in this thing where, I won't mention the place, Tommy, but these people went in the basement of this place, so he knows where I'm going with this. So, and I guess they ran out scared, and I kind of laughed when I heard that, because I was just new with the guys. I was just coming along, and I'm like, they ran out scared. So, that seems, now if you listen to them trying to get into the place and what's going on with the owner, that's the focal point. That's the focal point. So, like you said, groups and people are going to say a lot of crazy things and a lot of things, and you have to really put it into context. You have to, see who they are. Like with our team being up in the thing, I got people's pictures. There's kind of a little background about who we are, what we do. Some people, don't do that, and a lot of groups won't do it because I don't know. I guess maybe they're hiding from something. I want people to know who we are before we come into your house or your building. That's kind of where the segue for me was going.
Yep.
And then the other part was too, I can't tell you, and this isn't an offensive thing to anybody, so please don't, anybody who's watching or listening, get offended. But a lot of people claim to be certain things. They're self-proclaimed demonologists, self-proclaimed paranormal investigators. Say, I'm self-proclaimed because I've been doing it so long. I didn't go to school for it, you know. So you have to gauge character individuals at a time. You have to work with them. You got to get to know them. And if you know them and you trust them and you work with them, then you be one of these people, you know, that you go along with what they say and what they're thinking. That's how I judge everybody, is by character. You know, I'm not a person that judges people. I mean that sincerely, but I watch to see what you do, how you act, how you treat other people. We can have healthy debates. You don't have to have the same opinion I do, by all means, God, no. But it's just like, how do you act around people? What are you telling people? What's your learning background? How long did you study this stuff? And if there's a lot of warning signs and a lot of different things that don't meet certain things that I'm looking for, then I kind of keep my distance, if that makes any sense.
So I do have to ask, when we did our first investigation together at the Glean jailhouse, I do have to ask what you thought of me. You can be honest.
No, I'm going to be very honest. No, I told Shane what I thought. I said, I like your style. I like what all of you guys do, because you guys are finding your niche. You're looking for a certain niche because you guys are doing the YouTube thing. You're looking for monetization. You're looking to get the numbers, and you want to be noticed. Okay, so that's my honest opinion, and I am cool with you guys each operating individually. The one thing that I've tried to bring to the table, and I want to bring to the table, and sometimes I come off like a smart ass or a snotty pissant, so I apologize to you about that, because I'll make comments on occasion, but I've tried to tell Drew, and you know, when we've been talking, or other people, that with you guys, I'm trying to be like that older guy to show you some better ways or some different ways, because what I see a lot of with certain parts of equipment, and I discussed this with Shane, I said, well, they're using a lot of the stuff that we use and stuff that we're doing, but there seems to be some areas that I don't know if they're double crossing, you know, double checking, like doing base readings or doing different things, because a lot of the stuff that I saw, we could easily explain. And I don't mean that as a cut down. I just thought there's some things that I guess I wanted to insert myself more. But then, as I told you when I met you, Tommy, I was like, I don't want to be that smart ass guy that comes in like, I know it all, and you guys don't know nothing. That's not how I want to be. That's not what I want to do. I just want to be there to help, because you guys are doing good work, and I wish I had your energy. I'm so damn old now. That's the one thing that makes me jealous, because you guys are just on it. You're going, and I'm just like, whew, I got to take a break. I got to sit down in a chair. But it's not really a negative thing, I think, that I'm telling you. It's just that I think I'd like to sit down with all of us as a team, and we go through all the equipment. We look at what we should be doing with some of this stuff and what we should not be doing with some of it. The phone usage is a problem for me unless people have their phones on airplane mode. I've been trying to whisper that in Drew's ear. It's like I see everybody using phone apps and different things, and then I see stuff happening. I'm like, well, is their phone on airplane mode? And he goes, I don't know. I go, well, it should be, because Shane will tell you as a scientist that if you don't have that on airplane mode, anything that's coming into your phone,
that
it sets off all your shit.
Of my board, not on airplane mode. It'll be like, I can see that.
And that's
recognize what it looks like.
And that's just something I learned over time, because I was doing it too. I was getting crazy.
It affects REM pods. It affects all that stuff. Very negative.
But I want to tell you, Tommy, while we're live with everybody, he had a great hit in that bathroom in Nichols. That was excellent. Yeah. When you had the REM pod, when you were by yourself in the bathroom, that was a good job.
Oh yeah, that one that was really creepy.
I went in there after I saw that. I went back in there that weekend, and I did some stuff with my EMF meter, and I couldn't get anything to respond. But I went in about 2 hours later, and then it started going off. And there's no different grounding in there. There's nothing. And I started asking very emotional questions. And for about 15 minutes, I got responses. So I looked at your video, and you got a hit. I think that you do great work, man. Don't get me wrong. You guys, I guess across the board, I see a lot of good stuff, and then there's a lot of stuff that I would tell you guys, being new, that if we were all to sit down and we talked amongst each other and share,
can do that.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great learning thing for everybody. And I love that you guys do cemeteries. So I'm going to keep the positive patting you on the back as we go along, because I love the fact that you guys do cemeteries, because I used to get chastised like crazy by other groups. Like, well, we don't do cemeteries. Why are you a cemetery? Like you do realize there's a lot of dead people here, right? And they want to talk. And I've been out here and I've had stuff happen. So keep doing that by all means too.
Yeah, I mean that's where I started out. I've always had a deep passion for cemeteries and stuff, and I didn't really plan on doing indoor stuff because I didn't think I would be able to get into some of these places. I thought you had to be more known and stuff, and then I met like all you guys, Drew and Danny, and all that, and then it started just kind of going from there, like a tree sprouting out.
Yeah.
You were saying too about the devices and stuff, and I know a lot of people get confused with like the K2s and stuff with that spiking. You know, you got to watch out for like, you know, electrical wiring and all that kind of good stuff. Like at Henderson Castle, like I remember that stuff was going off like crazy down in the foyer where all the Christmas and trees and lights were. And I didn't think too much about it. I mean, in my video, I was like, you know, I didn't think it was much, but I think a lot of people that are starting out, they just get a reading and they're like, oh my God, you know, this has got to be something paranormal related.
I felt terrible. I felt terrible about debunking that, you know, that door that happened at Henderson too. I felt terrible telling you that, but I told her, it's like, well, I just wanted to double check. But that's a good thing that we do that. You know, we should look at that stuff, because if we find where there's something else going on in the room, you know, then we know that has a loose, you know, thing in there, so we can address that. But I've thought the world of you since I met you. If I didn't, I'd tell you right here. Shane knows I'd be very honest. I think I've been honest, and I like everybody that's involved. All I've said to Drew is that I think that if we all sat down and we talked and we had a meeting about, you know, some procedures and certain things that we're doing, then you guys
can definitely help with that.
Yeah.
I understand how the devices work literally from the inside out. I mean, I've literally reconstructed them. So
we just want you guys to be better. I mean, you're good now. We just want you to be better than what you want. Like you said the other night, you want to be the shit, and I'm like, hell yeah. I love your excitement and your enthusiasm. You know, for all those same reasons. You know, we've been there, done that. So I'm here to help you guys and be part of your team. And you know, if SMP comes along or we're there, this and that, you know, if you got questions.
We got a question going on down here.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I was going to get to them. There's two recent ones, but what was the one you wanted to answer, Shane?
Well, I just noticed that Cuppy had some stuff about migraines and objects.
Yeah, if you want to. Yeah, I can either. I'll get to fishes first since he asked earlier, but he was asking how many times have y'all had deja vu or a dream that ends up happening in the same form of something? Is that some form something?
Yeah,
that's what this is in his words. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I'm not really the sensitive, spiritual, that kind, so I don't really dream much. So I don't really have had that issue, but I'm sure Dan, he's had all kinds of deja vu.
He says that shit. He says that shit, and then I'm sitting in the basement with him. He's like, man, I'm gonna call you out right here. And then he's like, man, this feels kind of weird in here. And I'm just like, see, he tells me he's not sensitive, but I can tell he's telling something weird's going on because he senses it. Your best tool is your body. So whatever, man. I've worked with him long enough, but he proclaims that he's as sensitive as a rock, and I know better. But yeah, I mean, I've had those. I was just in a very deep talk with Joni Mahan, who I just interviewed last night for my podcast, and Joni has written like 23 books, and you know, she's been on all the shows, blah blah blah. Great person. So I fired off to her some things that have happened to me, and they're reoccurring dreams. And I think some people who are oversensitive, I think I've talked to Lynn about this too. I've talked to Lynn Feek. In fact, I know I have talked to Lynn about this, that she's had them too, that we've had a reoccurring dream about a place. And then eventually, I mean, years later, there it is. You know, I'm on a bus. I had a dream about Lafayette, Indiana one time. And I was in this dream. I was up on a hill. I could see the river, bridges. Ended up, I was asked by these two dead people in my dream. They came out of their coffins. For some reason, they were in this historic house, and people were there that were going to demolish it. Asked me to come help save their house, and said, "This is our town. This is our house." And I woke up like, "Damn, what was that?" And then about a few months after, I went and took a trip, and I was coming through Lafayette on a bus, and I'm coming out of the top part of town, and right there's the house, there's everything, and I'd never been there before. It was all just as I saw it in my dream. And I never followed up with it, but I saw the house that was in my dream, and I saw the river, and the top of the town was a hill where you went down by Purdue University, and just nutty shit. So I've had a few of those. Yes, I guess that's my answer.
Cool.
And then Cuppy asked, and I'll ask the question first. So they ask, if any of you are sensitive, do certain things give you headaches / migraines? When are you around certain things? ? If so, is that normal? In other words, is the paranormal something I should avoid or dive deeper into to learn about? I don't know how to ask that right. Do you even want to go first? I'll say this at first. I have never gotten like headaches or migraines from a paranormal investigation. I've also never been scratched or anything like that.
Yeah,
I have been touched.
I haven't yet
but
either.
I have gotten, and this actually happened at Henderson Castle. I opened was it like a closet door? It's in the video, and I could feel like my breath being taken away. Like it's like my chest felt like tight, and it was like kind of harder to breathe. That's like the weirdest as far as like that kind of realm that question was asked around. That's happened to me. I know Drew from our group has been scratched, and I've known a couple people that have headaches and stuff like that. But that personally, that's never happened to me. I guess you've guys been doing it longer, so you probably can answer this better.
Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, I've never really had any physical effects from investigations other than staying up till 6 a.m. I pretty much need a nap. I'm a little bit exhausted, but as far as like, I've never really, especially things, I don't know. Doesn't seem to do anything.
Yeah, and then us staying up for 3 hours longer to talk.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
That happens.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I have, she's right on the head thing. I've told Shane before that my head feels weird. It feels like there's pressure, a little dizzy, and then once in a while, the ear ringing is something that I talked over with Jody Mahan, and she wrote a book about that. And there's a lot of people who have, I guess, a psychic gift or whatever you want to call it, sensitivity gift, that happens randomly. And they believe that because due to barometric pressure change and certain things going on with paranormal, that causes that. And I get that often. And I've been tested for tinnitus. I do not have tinnitus. But it'll last for a moment. It'll start in my left ear. I'll hear the ringing. I feel a change in the room. There's been once or twice that I've seen something moving in the room. So I don't want to throw out a bunch of fanciful stories, but I mean, I think there's a connection. As far as avoiding the paranormal, that's something you got to ask yourself, because we've had people that were in SMP Coldwater that, they had personal things going on. And next thing you know, they find Jesus. And I don't want to, again, please don't send hate mail to me. The next thing that that they're just stepping out because they think paranormal brings on all this bad luck and all these attachments. And some of that stuff, I guess, possibly could happen. But I would tell you that for the most part, I've had more beautiful experiences with this stuff than I've had anything negative.
I've never really had negative.
Yeah, so you gotta ask yourself that, is that something you want to get involved in? And if you do, there's so many. As I said, there's so many people and names out here now. I mean, so many, that you can go read books from everybody who wants to write a book about their experiences. But, I still send people to all the old Hans Holzer books. This guy was a scientist across the board. He was a lot of different things. Brad Steiger has passed away. His wife and him have passed away, and he's written several, and each book was like a damn family Bible. But there's still good things to read up on, and there's still good groups. I think there's still good groups out there for you to, pay attention to and people to learn from. If I'm going to say out of the television shows, I still think that Jason Hawes and his crew still kind of represents kind of how you should operate, what you should be doing. I think Grant did too, with the sci-fi, when they were both doing their separate thing and together. A lot of people would call them out, but again, there was a lot from that I took from in running my group. Ghost Adventures, they're out there on the edge doing their crazy shit, and they still get some great evidence, but a lot of it, I think it's entertainment, man.
He's out there.
Yeah, he's down. I mean, it's entertainment. I met the guy years ago, and I think he's a nice guy, in Fort Wayne before they went big on TV, and he's a nice dude and whatnot. But let's be real, guys. Come on,
Yeah, I mean, if you're wanting to try paranormal stuff, you just go out and do it. You know, you can't really. You can sit there and look at like, oh man, is this going to happen or is that going to happen? The best way to do it is just go out and try it for yourself, and then if it works out, it works out, and that's kind of what I did. You know, I started out doing cemeteries, you know, just checking them out. And I didn't even have gear or anything, and I slowly fell in love with it. You know, I was a little weirded out at first, or freaked out, kind of, but you kind of get used to it, and then you just slowly, I don't have a passion for it. And don't go out there thinking, because you can't say like, oh, is something bad going to happen to me in the cemetery, or something bad going to happen to me like in this house or whatever, because that's not always the case. And it goes with paranormal investigations too, is am I going to get enough evidence, or is something actually just going to happen in general? Is there going to be any evidence? You don't know. You can, like we were talking about this earlier, you go to the same house 7 days a week, every day, and you're going to get the different evidence every single day than you would the day before.
You're right. Yeah.
So it's just hit or miss, really.
And I would caution too. Like I said, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's not things that won't follow you home or you can't get connected to. That's my belief, because I've had it happen to me. I've met other people who've had it happen. Does it turn your life into a hell? No. People who share those stories say, "Well, I did this," or let me just jump. I want to stay on point here. So let me just jump ahead to like this Ouija board stuff. Use your Ouija board. You know what it is? It was a parlor game invented by a guy for his daughter. That's why Parker Brothers still makes it. There's no magic in that board. You can make one out of a pizza box, folks. You can do one with a set of rocks. What we do when we're using digital recorders or tape recorders is the exact same thing you're doing with that Ouija board. You're opening a door of communication. It has no special powers to start bringing evil demons to chase you. You know, and then you got bad luck the rest of your life. Well, when I've talked to a couple of these people, first questions I asked, and when they tell these stories, like, let's talk about your life decisions. Maybe you see where I'm going. So, you know, you are the one that's in control of some of the bad things that happen to you at times. And then they're like, well, I did this Ouija board 10 years ago. It's like, well, you're giving that way too much credit. And then you have other people that I've interviewed, you know, again, who say that there are things that attach to you that can cause some of that. So, until like Shane, I'm a skeptic. Until I have 100% proof, I can say, well, maybe there's a possibility, but just be careful. Okay. Be careful what you're doing when you're talking to people. Tell them you only want to speak to people who are positive. You have a lot of control over yourself and your environment around you. You know, Shane or Tommy is right. Going out there with simplified equipment, you know, go get yourself a digital camera, a recorder, and a notepad and a flashlight. That's your number one equipment is flashlight. Okay. I am the worst offender for getting my flashlight so you can see in the dark. But once you have that, you're off and rolling. But, you know, just be safe. If you believe in prayer, say protection prayers. If you have a trinket you want to wear, if you're metaphysical, do your thing, but just be careful. And I would tell people, and it's not that I live by it, but you know, there's a lot of cemeteries that are out and about in the middle of nowhere, and they're not gated. They don't have hours. Just be careful when you're out there. You know, go in teams. Please work with other people because we've come across some really weird situations.
Yeah, you might find non-spiritual entities.
Oh, yeah. I'm more afraid of that than I am.
Teenage level.
or the town drunk. But, you know, also, you know, when you're out there at night, you know, if you have a cemetery you want to go into and it's gated and whatnot, just try to get permission before you go in. If not, just be there till dusk. I do the creeping thing too. We go to a lot of cemeteries. They're out in the middle of nowhere. There's no hours listed, and we go out there and check it out because we know we're not in there tipping over headstones or damaging anything.
Yes.
But I would just tell everybody, just side of caution. Just it's up to you what you want to do, but just be careful. You know. Wow.
I'm more afraid of the living than the dead, to be honest. I agree.
Oh, yes, sir. That's why I'm packing. That's why Shane packs. That's why we wear our guns.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, Cuppy, I don't know who you are or where you're from, but you know, if you're always interested, you know, you can comment down below in one of my videos, and I can stay in touch if you're interested in checking this stuff out. You know, I can help you, and if you want to come with or whatever, you know, I'm more than welcome or more than happy to have new people come along in my videos and stuff like that. So, I mean, these guys been doing it forever. So like whatever, you know, listen to what they say. I mean, they know what they're talking about.
As I do. Yeah. One of them things.
But at the end of the day, like, you know, all of us into the paranormal and stuff, do we really know if this stuff's real? No, we honestly don't.
I've got
trying hard.
hours. I got hours of footage I want to show Shane that I've been promising, which we will. We'll have time. We'll get together.
Oh yeah,
I
we'll get
promise you.
together.
Because Deb has stuff of orbs and things that I just can't explain. And I'm not a huge orb guy because we know a
No.
lot of it's moisture bugs, mustache, hair, booger, whatever. But we have some that are just doing some weird shit.
Yeah.
And they're from places like the State Theater and, you know, the Delton Farmhouse and some places that we pretty much did everything we could. And we found that them to what I think would be haunted is how I would rate them. But not every place has that either. Not every time you see an orb is that something. That's a whole other show.
And one thing, if you're gonna be,
They asked.
yeah, go ahead. If you're gonna be out,
Keep going.
doing photography on site, take the time, get the manual, learn how your camera works, so you can take pictures with long exposure without flash, because 95% of the orbs, et cetera, that people show are just flash.
Yep.
Once the flash is gone and you have a very high resolution, 20 some megapixel picture that was taken with long exposure, no, that stuff is not there. So,
no, and it still goes the 15 to 20. It's probably 25-foot rule now because the new flash.
yes.
LED flashes are so much brighter. So
Brighter,
anything,
yeah,
if you can gauge anything between that distance when you're shooting stuff. I mean, if you get anything that's past 25 foot,
yeah.
I've tried to. I don't know how much Shane believes me on this, but I've told him this, that I think once we've caught some things and they're casting a shadow and they're about 25 feet out or more, that's just weird. If we don't see it with our eyeball, what is that?
Yeah, fish. A lot of especially in cemeteries, especially in the summer. I kind of it's a lot of it's bugs. It is bugs.
But
a lot of people
if you're doing a long exposure, you will not see a single one of those.
Nope.
Really?
Nope. He's right.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
Sometime we'll get together and I'll show you and I'll give you some demos and you'll be like, oh wow, that really makes sense. And then you're like, now this is a whole new realm, because not only are the pictures very much higher fidelity than they are with just a quick flash, but all of the things like bugs, dust, all that stuff does not show up in those photos.
Nope.
And they're razor sharp. I mean, you can read text on the wall from 20 feet sometimes.
Yeah,
they're so sharp. So once you learn how to do it, it does take a little practice, and you have to take your camera out of the full automatic mode and actually use some manual settings. But once you know how to do it, then you're like, wow, some of the pictures you can take. Plus, they look cool too, because they don't have the fake flash going across the room or across the yard, whatever.
Yeah, I do notice a lot of people that are film with their phones or take pictures with their phones.
Yeah,
more
and phone
dust
cameras are not terrible, but again, they are not a full-size DSLR, or they don't have a large lens. They can't do the night photos like the big full-size cameras can.
Yeah, mine does that. I have a few, but then you should be using a tripod, because God forbid you move slightly, because you get all the lights and people are like, what is that? I'm like, it's nothing. Trust me, it's not paranormal. It's just my hand moving.
Yeah, I remember that one picture you showed me, Dan. The one, I don't know where it was at, someone's house or something, and it was that possible orb that had like the shadow behind it.
Yeah, that's
a little bit different. Yeah,
that's the
that one was interesting.
Main Street Winery, and that camera was on a tripod, and it was just taking automatic photos by itself. We had set it on a timer.
I'd be more than willing to give you guys, some informal classes on this stuff. If you guys want to, we'll meet up somewhere and, have a dinner or whatever, and then sit down and
be there.
Yeah, sit down and, I'll spend a couple hours with you guys going over some of the equipment, do some demos, do some things, show you some photography stuff, because I was into photography really big for quite a while before I was in paranormal. So I think you could learn some stuff, and we'll have good times, and
I'm down for that.
I'm willing to help you guys. I mean, I'm not one of those try to keep it all to myself. I want to know the answers, and I don't care how I get them exactly,
Well, I would tell you, Tommy, and a lot of people, and it's not just to get traffic on my network, but I put, once Jason passed away, he did a series for the longest time called Paranormal 101, and he would talk about false positives, how people would, without realizing it, they'd pick up cigarette smoke, rain, moisture, all this stuff. But he's got a series, and he wasn't just all about debunking. He's also talking about forming your own hypothesis, going through scientific methods,
the whole science thing, and
the whole thing. And he was good at that. He was kind of like my mentor, and I have those up on our network, and I tell everybody go over there to the Sullivan Effect and watch those videos and see the series. Even though he's passed away and they're old, it still holds a lot of water as to what you should be aware of, what you should look out for. This was a guy too that had one of the best video evidence things I've ever seen, which was the lady in the cemetery over there in Chicago. I'm having a brain fart real quick. Oh shit, what the hell is it called? Anyway, the point is, if you go to my network, you can find them over there on the page, and they're good. They're a good watch.
Your link for this, the network is in the bio if anyone's wondering.
Yeah, it's unrestrictedparanormal.com. Yeah. And it's spelled different too. It's kind of weird, but with
an X.
With an X. Yeah. And he just put on Downers Grove. Is that Downers Grove? Bachelor Cemetery. That's what it was. So there had been a picture that was released years ago of a lady sitting on a headstone. Well, he went there for himself because, he's like, I'm going to debunk this. There's no way there's a house that you would see, then it would disappear. Well, he saw a house and it disappeared. So he didn't know what to think. And then he had a video camera set up, and you see this woman slightly at a distance, just a few seconds walking around, and there's no bottom to her. So it's, he was on top of what he was doing. And he was one of these guys that we used to kiddo each other a lot because he would give me a lot of guff and shit about my stuff, and I do the same for him. It's like, well, I've been to the Queen Elizabeth's not haunted. I'm like, just because you say it's not haunted doesn't mean it's not haunted, dude. Yeah. But he was a good guy. But I would send anybody over there to take a look at him, and you'll learn some stuff. And he was all about what Shane was saying about camera work and identifying things that should be identified and what you should be thinking. And I think we should all put our minds to, coming up with a theory or an idea and then go out and try to reproduce it or to prove it. I still do that. I do crazy stuff, Well, after we did the investigation, I went back in that room 1 there at the Hotel Nichols and worked it by myself, and people were still in there talking to me. And, cool. It's just nutty. It's just nutty. And I didn't expect that. I just thought, well, now it's all going to be quiet. I'm not going to hear anything. But they were there. But
well, I guess this leads me to a question I was going to ask earlier, but we got sidetracked. But so Shane being 2080 skeptic, and then obviously Danny, from both of your perspectives, what is like the most craziest paranormal activity that you've ever witnessed in person on any investigation? The craziest shit you've seen.
Keep it clean. I see that smirk on his face.
All right. Well, I guess I could go first. The ham radio with the lightning and the old preacher was pretty crazy. But we also had
that was crazy.
Ship, we had it on that ship. I was up in that same wheelhouse. Me, my wife, Noah, were up there, and Noah's up. He's in there, and of course, the ship, everything is metal. Everything, everywhere you walk, everything you touch or move or do anything, it makes a metallic sound. So, like climbing stairs, walking on ladder, going up ladders, walking on the deck, you can hear it echo through the whole ship. So, we're up there, the three of us, and Noah's like, "Well, my camera's almost dead. I'm gonna go down to my car and get some new batteries." So he goes down the hatch. Because literally this is a ship, there's hatches. He goes down the hatch. You can hear him go down the steps. You can hear him walking down the hallway below us and then leaving. Well, about 20 minutes later, I hear the footsteps down the hallway up through the hatch. I hear the sound of somebody going up the rungs of the ladder. And I got my back to it. And I'm like, "Oh, hey, Noah, how's it going?" And then there's silence. And I turn around and I look and I'm like, "Hey, Noah." And I walk up and I look down the hatch and I'm like, I yell down below, nothing, nobody, no sound, no nothing. So I talked to the wife. I was like, "So you hear that?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I heard it." And so we got the voice recorder. We played it back. You can hear it clear as day on the voice recorder. You can hear the footsteps. You can hear me just saying, "Hey, Noah," all that stuff. And then probably another 20 minutes later, this time we hear it again. This time it is Noah. He comes up and we're talking to him. He's like, "Yeah, we heard weird stuff." And he's like, "Well, I had to go to the gas station and get batteries, so I wasn't even on the property during that time. So, I mean, this was clear, and you can hear it on. I still have the audio. I have every bit of audio or anything I've ever recorded, and so you can hear it clear as a bell. You can hear the footsteps. You can hear the ladder. You can hear me talking. The wife heard it. It's on 2 or 3 recorders. So that was a weird one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is weird. It's very odd.
Yep.
I have several,
Yeah.
but I wanted to follow up with Shane, because that ship was amazing. If you don't know what it is, LST stands for Landing Ship Tank. So if you look at the photos of D-Day, this boat was used on D-Day to bring equipment and troops up right on the beach. They called it the Lucky Lady because it never got hit in combat. It got hit when they were doing refit in, was it Italy or wherever the hell it was? Tobruk. And so, you go there and it's got a history. And then in the 50s, it was bought as a car ferry. So it was going from, what was it? Saugatuck to Milwaukee and back,
I don't know.
or Muskegon to Milwaukee. And they had cut a hatch in the side of the ship, and then they had hit a party barge one night because this party barge was in a shipping lane where it shouldn't be, and no lights on. And when you look out the wheelhouse, the front of the boat goes up on an arc. So you can't see anything that's directly in front of you in the blackness of night, and they killed everybody on board. So it's got some death attached to it there.
They had German soldiers or captives.
Captives, yeah. Chained to the lower decks because some of them were jumping overboard when they were going on the way because they didn't want to be held responsible for things they did. But yeah, he's right. That was an amazing ship. I have recordings from there where I set a recorder the second time we went with Deb Para, and I put a recorder there at about 3:30 in the morning. I start hearing noise from the front of the ship on the recording. We're all upstairs sleeping. It's locked up. There's nobody wandering around. And it sounds like people are working, and it sounds like the front of the boat's opening, and there's just nothing going on. So that was an amazing one. I just wanted to follow up with Shane. That was an amazing place, and it's in Muskegon. You guys can go visit it. Anybody can go see it. I think for me, it would be the first time I saw somebody solid. I had seen things when I was a little boy. I've shared this story with everybody in the group where I had not, in later years of my life, I'd see shadows and different things, but I never really saw a solid person. And I went to work for the Pfizer Corporation at the time, or Pharmacia is what it was. And we're working in a high-rise building, and it used to be the old Upjohn facility. Upjohn was the biggest pharmaceutical company in the world in its day. W.E. Upjohn invented the friable pill, which meant that was the first medication that you could crush with your thumb. It would break down in your system. So when I came to work there, a couple of people I knew from my past, and I hadn't started paranormal investigating, but they knew I was into hauntings and all this weird stuff. And they said, Dan, you're going to love it, man. When you start doing your tour in the high rise, the 4th and 5th floor is haunted. And I said, I will be the judge. People tell me stories all the time, and I'd go into places and nothing. So first week I'm there, it's July, and I'm up there. It's in the afternoon. It has to be after 4 or 5, if I remember right, because I could still see sunlight outside. And I was dreading going to my mom's 4th of July thing down in Howe, Indiana, because I had small children and my wife was pregnant, and I didn't want to sleep in a tent and get sweaty. That was what was on my mind. So as I'm on the 4th floor, I lock open the elevator. That's our standard procedure. And what we're doing is we're doing fire checks. We're checking machine rooms to make sure nothing has bound up, nothing's on fire, because they were getting ready to tear the building down, and they're removing everything from all the floors. But they still kept the heat and the air conditioning running. So as I get off the elevator, I lock it open. I take a left. I go to the first room. Everything looks good. We have these little wands. You hit a button, and it records information that you stopped there at such and such time on your tour. I start walking by this room, and the way the building was, it's a giant square or rectangle, and you had office buildings on each side, and in between there were some rooms here and there. And in this particular room, I heard somebody laugh to the left of me, and I turned and looked at the badge that was still on the door. They had removed the doors. It said instrument room, so I could see straight through to the other hallway on the other side of the building, and it's less than 6-7 feet. And so as I heard that laugh, I noticed something move at the bottom, and I turn and look down, and there's a lady staring at me. Kid you not. And her hair's in like a bowl cut, and her neck's kind of turned funny, and her hands, I noticed her hands are on the door jamb. So what I'm thinking is that she would have to have been parallel to the floor. And this is happening in a matter of seconds, and I'm staring at her, and she had a look on her face like, well, who are you and what are you doing? You know, one of those looks. And I thought maybe the guys put on a mask and they were trying to scare the shit out of me or something. So I took a step forward, and she started to let go. If anybody can see, she didn't let go like this. She started with her pinkies, and then she moved. And when she moved, her hair didn't move, but I heard a big rush of air, like, and I was through that other door, and I was bound to catch somebody because I'm still thinking in a matter of seconds, the guys are screwing with me. I get in that hallway, and there's nobody. And this is about 150 yards on each end to get to the stairwells, and we have those locked off, so you can't get up here on the stairwells if somebody were to break in. And there's nobody. Now I'm standing there going, what the hell did I just see? And I kind of said a couple of words. I started down towards the other room, and I'm really questioning my sanity, man. I'm thinking, man, I'm into this stuff, but what the fudge did I just see? And so as I'm just about to the room, the other machine room, I start hearing this banging behind me. And these are metal offices. They're hermetically sealed so that when you open the first door, there's an air suction in there, and then you go through a second door. And that's because when they would run experiments, they didn't want stuff getting out into the hallways, you know, affecting people. So I hear this, and it's going on behind me, and I won't look. And I tell you, I'm a brave guy. I think I am. I didn't run, but I was moving a little quicker. And I got to that machine room, and I wouldn't look back. And I closed the door behind me, and I walked a few feet, and I turned around and looked at the door, and I was waiting for something to push the door open. And then I realized I'm wearing my radio. I could call my headquarters downstairs because we have officers at our cameras downstairs, and I can call my sergeant. And then I laughed out loud. I remember saying to myself, Dan, you dumbass, if it's a ghost, it could just walk through the door. Why did you shut the door? So I reached over and I opened the door, and I stepped out, and the banging had stopped, but you could have cut. I swear to God, I've been to other places like this too. You could have cut the air with a frickin' butter knife. The energy was so heavy. And so I'm like, okay, I didn't even hit the button. I'm thinking I'm getting my ass downstairs, and I'm going to go find my sergeant and tell him what I just saw. So I go down, I take the shortcut by this big giant cooling unit, which is like big giant cooler. And I never knew what it was for. Now I notice that it's open a little farther, and it's pitch black in there. I can't see in there for some reason. And I felt like somebody was watching me. So I got around the corner. I could see the elevator doors are open about 10 feet away. The banging starts again on the other hallway. And I'm like, oh, and I'm still trying to explain this in my head, guys. I'm like, these sons of bitches. I get downstairs, I'm beating everybody's ass when I get down there because I'm sure they're screwing with me. So I get in the elevator. I step in. I unlock the doors. I hear them close behind me. Now, mind you, I'm not going to turn around because see that little image you have up there? So years later, when I saw the ring, that's what I assimilate in my mind that I thought I was going to be standing in the hallway was going to be that chick. And her hair would be short, and she'd be like, staring at me. So I let the doors close. I turned around, and now I'm on the elevator ride from hell. So it takes me up to 13, which is an elevator service room, which we had to check because we had machinery up there. It brings me down to 5, goes to 4, back up to 5, and then took me down to the basement. And so I get out, and my sergeant's coming around the corner, and I'm just like, what in the can I swear on the program?
Yeah.
So I'm like, what in the fuck did I just go through here? And I wasn't like scared, but I'm in shock because I'm like, I'm into this, but I'm like, I actually finally saw something. And she's like, Danny, what's the matter, man? I know you, man. You're not afraid of anything. What's the matter? Your face ain't right. And I told him, I said, your little friend came and visited me up on 4. And I want to tell you, for like 2 or 3 years till they took that building down, shit would go on the 4th and 5th floor. I took managers up there that wouldn't believe me. We'd hear old time music. We'd hear people talking, and then you'd make comment about it. You're like, well, we hear you, and it would stop. We had bathroom lights that the ballasts were not plugged in because we had gotten rid of a lot of the power. And I learned this later. I told Shane this too, that we did an experiment one time where I saw when this paranormal group was in a room, they had fluorescent bulbs. And they were just holding them. And when the ions started charging up in the room and shit was happening, it ignited the gas in those light bulbs and they were glowing. And I think that's what we saw there too. So that went on for 3 or 4 years, but that was the turning point for me where I said, I'm going to get together with my buddy and I'm going to start looking at the stuff, because that was cool. It haunted me for a couple weeks, but it was still cool.
So you can still remember this like vividly, like in your head,
it's like yesterday. I can still see her face. Yeah.
How many years ago was this?
Oh God, this was like 2001, 2000. Yeah, 2000, 2001. Yeah, at least. And Eve will tell you, my wife, that's who Eve is. She will tell you that for a couple of weeks. I mean, it's not that I had trouble sleeping, but I would see it. I would remember it. So it's like when people see Bigfoot, it's kind of a shock. And I hadn't seen anything solid, but then I had a few more things happen after that. Now it's just like I see stuff, I'm excited. It doesn't throw me into that shock wave as much. But I think that's one of the better ones that I've had. But there's so many. There's so many that I've seen weird shit that I can't figure out. All
right, guys. Well, I'm gonna have to get going here pretty soon.
Oh, that's fine. We're about ready to wrap it up. He said over 100 billion people have died since civilization. Where the heck are all the bodies?
In the dirt.
Yep. Ash to ash, dust to dust, baby.
Correct. So.
Well, I don't know what they mean by this, but the Cuppy asks, ever gone on a totally fake paranormal investigation? What is it like? Come check out this crazy XYZ and get there, and there's nothing to it at all. I can't say I've ever done that. No.
No.
I've heard talk. I was almost drawn into, again, there's a lot of things that go on in this field. There's drama, there's fighting, all sorts of crazy shit. I will tell you that I befriended a lot of groups and people in Indiana, and there was a person who is, I'm not sure if it's ever been proven, but he claimed to be a distant relative of a very famous magician. I'll just say that. We know who I'm probably talking about. Straight jacket guy, Detroit River.
Yep.
He went to a place that's in Indiana that they have groups that still go there. And he went there and was doing some stuff behind the scenes and discovered that they were faking a lot of stuff. And it turned into a huge battle. And, some of the names that are still out there that are big in certain circles were part of that arguing and this fighting. And then it almost drew me in. And I'm like, I'm not getting part of this, even though I knew some of the people. But some of the people that were on the side of exposing it, I'm friends with. And I would trust them with the life of my kids, if that gives you any indication. So there are people who I think do it. I don't like to pay to go to places. I think that's, Tommy, that's what I meant early on when I met you, that I'm not real big on paying unless it goes to like a museum or something like that. But there's so many of them out there, they turn them into revolving doors, and I think there's a lot of stuff that's set up, if I'm to be honest. I can't prove it, but I've heard that through a lot of different people through the grapevine.
Sure.
So if that answers that question, but yeah, Shane, if you got to go, Shane, if you got to go, that's fine. But before you go, definitely shout out like your podcasts and all your information.
Oh yeah, sure. Of course, everybody can find me. Just look up my name, Shane Feek, on Facebook. You'll find me there. Also, Studio 6 Paranormal Podcasts. Go there and watch those podcasts. There's also some older ones that were on Spreaker through Phantom Science. So if you go and look up Phantom Science on there, you can see some of my older stuff. Most of it's just audio only, but still some pretty good shows on there with my guys, John and those. From out in Iowa. So that's the easiest way to find me. And if you guys have
most of this stuff is in the description too. Like Shane, send me those your podcast channel, because I didn't have that. But most of this, where you can find them and all their links is all in the description. So and then if you have any questions for Shane, just hit him up on all those.
Find me on Facebook. It's easy. I don't have nothing. So all right, man.
And it's a good. I'm give him props.
I appreciate. I appreciate you for coming on. It was
awesome
a real
show,
pleasure.
Tommy. And thanks again, Dan.
Good to see you, buddy.
See you guys.
Yeah, peace out, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, he's got a great podcast. I go over there and watch it every so often. Plus, we carry it on the network. So
I'm sure Danny will be on here for the next 2 hours. We're gonna keep going here. It's gonna be a 24-hour live stream.
Yeah. I have a lot to share, man. I mean, I'm accused of talking a lot, which you do, you can tell. But like I said, I always like sharing information and telling stories. And the cool part, as I've tried to convince people, and as my wife, again, is usually the person to back me up, it's like when Dan tells you a story, it's a thing that's actually happened. I'm not one to come out here and lightly make stuff up, And as nuts as some of it is, I could tell you stories about my time, working security. I was just sharing with a group of people at the Icebreaker celebration in South Haven this weekend, stuff that I'd see doing law enforcement and security. And like, what? I'm like, oh yeah, I can't make that up. This is stuff that people really do, and let alone what goes on the paranormal. It's just it's a crazy slide, man. I guess I'd have to say I'm a lot like Shane too. I am still a very healthy skeptic. I love stories and I love all this stuff, but until I can get something to happen to me, or I've captured something, or you know what I mean? I still kind of put it in that fray of where now I can say I believe it because it's happened to me. I don't know if that makes any sense, because I've been asked about demonic stuff, like whether I believe it or not. So I've never been invited to any kind of a thing that had that type of attachment, and if I have that experience, I'll be the first to share it. I don't know.
Right. Do you all think a creepy spot puts people's imagination on alert? As far as what I get from that is like, okay, let's say you're going to a certain place that has a certain thing there, like, like the Conjuring House, or like an example, a cemetery I went to, it's Finley Cemetery, home of the Ada Witch. It's like you're expecting to go there and speak to the Ada Witch, and there's going to be a witch there, and everyone, their imagination runs wild when you go there, like, oh man, yeah, I saw a witch there. That's not the case. It's a lot of kind of like what we were talking about earlier about mediums and empaths and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a cool thing that you brought that up, because I've had an involvement with that too, and we were trying to research it for years, and none of the story basis on anything that's real. And there was a lady who is buried out there in an unknown grave, and then I know some people who are not really well liked by a lot of us here in the field. They went out there and bought a headstone for him and all this other stuff. But there's
which were you talking about?
Ada Witch.
Oh,
and
okay.
there's nothing to back that story, and it's a cool story. I'm all about, I don't want to destroy people's perceptions of urban legends, because I dig them too. We have Hatchet Man Road over here by us, and Ada Witch. I've been to Nunica Cemetery. I've investigated that several times, and
great cemeteries.
I did see stuff in there. Yeah, so I was a skeptic going in there, like bull crap, because I didn't believe the person that I was with. One of those things, and I was set straight on that. But a lot of those are interesting, because I don't want to be. I want to put this in the nicest way. I don't want to be the bubble burster. I don't want to be that guy that's trying to debunk everybody's fun. But if I want to go look into some of this stuff, I always want to see how much can you document that's true? How come you can back up with research? That's why I like what Mark does and Drew does a little bit, is they really, they get into seeing stuff and finding the research and the history of the place. I do a little bit of that too. And I don't want to ruin people's fun. Because all I will say about Hatchet Man Road is I can't corroborate that story either, but we did get EVPs sitting in our car on Hatchet Man, and we felt weird out there. We talked to the guy that was chasing people for years with his car, so we know that happened, and that would be the vehicle that people thought was ghostly and that they were seeing. But I don't know. I've been around and we've experienced a lot, and I've been to Dansville. I've been to Munchkin, Munchkin Cemetery.
Munchkin Land.
Yeah, been there, and
Frost Cemetery.
It's a very awesome place, and I've seen some weird stuff there in the corner. My wife saw it too. So we've been to a lot of places you've been. Yeah,
no, it's like I'm all for keeping myths and legends alive and stuff.
Absolutely,
but I'm not going to be the one that goes there and makes a YouTube video where it's like you pull out some shit out of your ass and it's like, oh yeah, we saw the witch there, we saw the lady in white there. It's like, I'm here to see if this shit's real or not.
Right.
And I can tell you for a fact, when I went to, like I've said this many times on different live streams, the Ada Witch, whatever you want to call it, Finley Cemetery, there is no witch there. From what I got from the spirit box, from talking to Sarah McMillan, which was actually her name, she died of typhoid fever. It says right on her headstone. They bought a new headstone for through the spirit box, I asked, what did you die of? And it said typhoid fever. And I mean, I'm not saying that, is that what she actually died from? But
see, I don't know because I think that was a random connection. And again, I won't get into that. I will just say that I know the people that bought the headstone, and I wouldn't believe them if they told me the sky was blue. Let's put it that way. That's unfortunate too. And I didn't want to turn part of this interview into that, but there's a lot of people out here too who just aren't the great people, greatest people that are operating in these fields. And like I said, they start drama. They want to fight. It's all about, keeping their places to themselves. And I've never been territorial. I've told everybody, if you want to come in and do Henderson or do whatever, come on in. I don't want to get off on that. So the weird part is, like, I'm not the one to go to the places either and debunk them. That's not what I was about. Like with Munchkinland, I didn't want to go there and debunk the story about the priest and all this stuff. Is that where's all the paperwork to prove this? It's a great story, but it's a story. We did Siena. Not a lot of people know that you could get into Siena University, which is very.
Before you keep talking, do you think you can ramble on for like a minute and a half?
Yeah, go take a potty break, do you?
Yeah, I've been holding it in. Just ramble on for a second.
Me too. Back. I was getting to that point myself, but I will tell everybody, Siena University is a Catholic university. We through Bob Penny's connection, and Bob is part of our group also. We found, there's a lot of legend there about this monk and having his head cut off and all this crazy stuff. And I was always trying to tell Bob, who's been at it longer than me, that, unless we can document it, I just don't like doing videos and putting that information out there. Not because I want to disavow the legend, because it's kind of a cool, creepy story. But at the same time, I want to get to the bones of who's really there and who may really be haunting. I try to hold up integrity, if that means anything, to the dead. If there's somebody there and they have something to say, or they want to communicate, or, we're there to talk and communicate with them, I want them to come through, not people that are part of some made up story. So, and I'm not trying to be, stick my nose up or be better than anybody else. That's just kind of where I'm at, with it, if that makes any sense to any of you out there. And I've been very blessed. I want you to know this. I've been very blessed in a lot of ways to get into a lot of cool places that other people haven't been able to go. And it's cool to see more groups following our lead, because I notice every year some new group or somebody else is getting into a place that we've already been or we've already done. And I wasn't always out there to say, well, we were the first to do it. I did early on, because that's kind of what you're trying to do when you're making a name for yourself. But it's cool. Like the Kalamazoo Air Zoo, we have an air zoo here, which has a lot of historic World War II planes, NASA stuff. I mean, all sorts of stuff. And we were one of the first to do it. And we got a lot of great stuff out of there. And again, we got to go into the underground storage museum portion of this place, and I'm handling World War II weapons, confiscated swords, off dead Japanese. So there's a lot of heavy stuff in there. We were able to touch uniforms. We had to be very careful. So we were granted, unlimited access, because the director wanted to make sure that we were above board, because she had a group in before us. There was a group, and it's the same two people I'm talking about with the headstone, that, they weren't above board 100%. And I said, I've been very blessed to be part of some of that stuff and to see and hear some stuff. And Kim, the director, was sitting with me on the floor, and when we heard people walking up in the rafters, and she had not heard, she'd been in that building for 30 years and never heard that. We had people walking around airplanes, all sorts of crazy stuff going on. So I don't know. It's just been a fun run, and that's why I'm talking on and on. He's back from his bathroom break. I love sharing, because I've learned so much. I've also learned humble pie. Let me tell you this. So humble pie is something and crow, I will eat it with the best of people, because, you think that you've been here, you've done this, you've done that. And once in a while, I think that's a healthy thing to have, is to be humbled. And I had that happen at Henderson Castle not too long ago. About the story with the white lady. And I kept telling people, bull crap, there's no white lady in here. I've been in here 15 years, there's no white lady. And I showed Tommy that photo. So here I go in there on Christmas of 21. And what do I get on one of my first photos? It's something white standing at the bottom of the stairs. So Dan's wrong. Dan is wrong. I don't know it all. And I don't know everything. So that's a good thing, though. It's a good thing.
Cuppy said that apparently when I went to the bathroom that they or she or he she whatever, I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, so they saw a reflection when I from the mirror in the background, and I said, well, maybe it was me coming back from the bathroom, but these are antique mirrors. I got one here and then I got one over there as well. So I don't know. I don't have them facing each other because I don't want to create a portal. If you're familiar with that, but yeah,
Yes,
they are
sir.
antique mirrors.
Yeah.
For sure. It's a she.
You know,
Okay.
I think a lot of people have to remember too, back in the day and this is not so far in the past, that turn of the century, Victorian times, 1900s, they were still doing it, that when somebody died, all the mirrors in the house would be covered or turned around. And they were very aware that they thought that, you'd be coming back from the dead. Really strange. We saw some stuff one time at a house over near Detroit, an old mansion. I can't mention it because it's a private residence, but they had stuff in there from the family who had owned it for about 100 years, and there was stuff in there that was made from their hair. Like they had clipped their hair when they were dead, and they made like these little wreaths in there, and that's their hair. And I thought I need to learn more about some of the death process, and I learned about the mirrors and the death process there, and the mourning room. If you look at a lot of mansions, they have a thing called the mourning room or mourning nook, and that's where they family would die, and you'd put their casket in there, and everybody could come in and see them. There's a lot of cool, weird shit attached to paranormal.
Have you tried that? Because I've been interested in trying this method. It's called the Three Kings. Have you heard of that?
I have. Yeah. I haven't tried it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically where you put two mirrors, so you create a portal, and then you go in the middle between them, and then you do like a spirit box session, Estes method, whatever you want. That's what I think. Essentially, that's what the Three Kings is, right?
Yeah, I'd be interested to try it because we have a mirror in here. I always get weirded out by mirrors once in a while.
Yeah, I do too.
I'll take a lot of mirror photography, and I think I've only caught faces in them like once or twice. And, I take a series. I would tell anybody taking photos to take 3. And if you got something that shows up in the middle and you haven't moved, and it's not reflections, look at it closely. You might have caught something, but I think I've got one of those at the State Theater and one from Henderson, which is really weird. But I don't know that I've tried that.
I was going to say I would love to do Henderson again. I think there's a lot of activity in that place. A lot of activity.
I've tried this experiment. We built. He's no longer with the group, but a young man that was with us. We built a soundproof box, out of very thick wood, and we super glued it. We sealed it, everything, so that we put a digital recorder in it, and we would close the top. We had rubber seals around it so that when it would seal, you shouldn't be able to get any sound in there. That's how thick the wood was. So we would stand away at 10 feet and we would yell, and, we'd go back, open it, check out the digital, and you couldn't hear us. So we thought we'd be smart, and we took it to the ship, the LST, one year, and we put it downstairs, and we were experimenting with it. And I made sure everybody was upstairs on the upper deck. It's about 8:00 at night, and we left it down there about an hour. And about the first 15, 20 minutes, you heard nothing on that digital, but we captured a voice. Now, I can't tell you how a voice would have been picked up on the inside of a soundproof box. So a lot of groups have tried that. They've had negative, stuff happen, or they, like me, you get maybe one EVP out of a 1-hour session. And that always blew my mind too, that something was able to penetrate that box and say hi to us. So that,
right.
We've tried different things. We had the music box, and one of my friends, that method where they bought that same thing, like it's a glass mirrored, mirrored box, and it's got music that plays in it. And we put a digital in there. We did that in Indiana, and that got all sorts of weird stuff too. So like I said, there's so many different versions. I love the plasma ball that Shane brought up, because I'd seen a group do that early on, like right around 99. I went to a Troy Taylor. If you guys know any paranormal names out here, Troy Taylor has written books, does tours. So he had one in Lincoln, Illinois, and I went to it at the Lincoln Theater, not Lincoln, Illinois, but at the Lincoln Theater, South Illinois. And I was in there, and the weird part to a lot of what they had there on display and all this other stuff was stuff like that, like experiments. I watched some videos that I wasn't quite sure of, but he was explaining photography and all this other stuff. But he was one of these guys that had set the industry starting, on tours. I used to listen to Ghostly Talk, which they were the first podcast people to do a ghost show out of Detroit at some haunted winery. So they're still around, a few of them, but it's been a strange. I got to tell you, I'm happy you gave me the opportunity to talk. It's just been a strange journey. As I told everybody, I'm very blessed because I started out wanting to join a group here locally. They never responded, so that's part of the story too, and that's why I ended up starting my own stuff. But the podcasting thing, we started in 2008 on a thing called Blog Talk, if anybody knows what that is. And I did that for a few years, and then we did the internet thing and internet TV, and now we're back doing this.
Choo.
There's
I was going to ask you, actually, I wouldn't doubt it. I was going to ask you what you thought about those EV. Well, my like I said, my video for the bookstore comes out tomorrow, which it's still in the video as well because I had to include it. If you watch Drew's, what did you think about those EVPs that we got of the books? I thought that was the craziest shit I've witnessed for myself for EVPs. It was loud and clear.
I said you guys are catching good stuff. You're doing great work. Yeah, I was pretty.
And the craziest thing is that I think that was the most insane thing that happened that night. There really wasn't a whole lot that happened there, but that blew my freaking mind. That honestly sent like shivers down my spine after because Joe was filming him. I was over not too far from Drew and Joe. And then they came up to me like, dude, you got to listen to this. And I was like, and then they played it and I was like, holy shit. Like I couldn't believe it. I literally couldn't believe it.
I'm gonna take my
spot on.
So you keep talking. I'm gonna take my potty break.
All right. I probably cut it off here in like the next 5, 6, 10 minutes or whatever. But does anyone else have any questions? I know, Cuppy, you've been saying a lot. Yeah, you're talking about Samson, with like the hair stuff. Yeah. Hair is a powerful thing. It really is. It can make someone look like shit, and it can make someone look absolutely beautiful. But yeah. What else you say? Take a whole plug it, say a prayer. Hair is a power. Yeah. You live on the tracks. I literally live on the tracks. The train goes right underneath me, actually. No, I live fairly close. It's like right over there. It gets really annoying at times. Honestly, I think what's more annoying than the train is there's a right across the street from me there's a church, and every freaking day at 6 p.m. on the dot, the church has these bells and it will play for almost 10 minutes straight. And it makes me want to blow my brains out every freaking day. I think that's more annoying than the train, honestly. But the train, you can feel it like vibrating throughout the place I'm living at. Like everything will like shake. That's another annoying thing.
Where'd you say you're at? Over by Michigan City and Bridgman?
Yeah, I live in Bridgman. So I live like 20 minutes from Michigan City. So I live right on the border between Michigan and Indiana.
I used to deliver auto parts to Bridgman. It was on my route when I was just before they retired me.
There's really not much here besides the beach.
No, I'd come off the highway there and there was a shop. You'd come into town, take a right, and there was a little shop there on the left. They'd bring him auto parts. That was it. But I had some good food.
But yeah, that's the one good thing about we're in Bridgman.
Yeah. You guys had a restaurant there. I don't remember
where
what
it's
called. It was right there in town.
Oh, you
there was
don't
like
remember?
a car wash. There was a car wash and a bunch of different things, and it was like a mom and pop place. But it might even be
Roma's
gone now.
Pizza.
No, I don't know what the hell it was. It's so long ago. It's a long time ago.
Probably before my time. The power plant. Yeah, the power plant's here. The nuclear power plant. That's the one good thing about living here is because as far as investigations go, I can go up a little bit up into Michigan, and then I can go down into Indiana. That's what I was saying. I want you to come. I don't know how you feel. Like you said, you'd be interested in cemetery stuff, but I want to take the group because I've been there multiple times this past summer, and I love this place. Is Posey Chapel. It's in like LaPorte, Indiana.
Yep.
That place is very active, and I think there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot to it, and I think it's I've been telling Drew and Mark and them because they want to go to it. So I feel like we should take the whole group there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I don't want to
good
get
places.
too many people, but like,
there's a lot of good places in Indiana. I have a lot of, when I say peeps, it's just friends. That's what I mean by that. They said I met a lot when I started. I met Daniel Garrison, Jason Snyder, and they started doing the paranormal meet greet, Hannah House thing there in Indianapolis. So the first one I ever attended was at the Fort Wayne Masonic Temple. So I met quite a few Indiana groups. There was one or two from Michigan, and we were like the premier group from Michigan, but which is how they touted us. I didn't say that, but we were nobodies. That's where I met Bob Penny, and Bob literally lived a few miles up the road from me here. So I don't know. Indiana is very cool. I've done some stuff down there. We've done Webster, couple of different private places, and I like you. I try to go to some popular places. We went to Crown Point, Indiana. That was a flop. We call it the Crown Point incident. That's one of those that we saw online, and I happen to know somebody whose sister was the vet to all the horses that were at this farm, and this lady had the Indiana ghost trackers and all these people in there constantly. And it's all over the line, and I just thought, well, I want to go take my group on a first road trip, and that's where we're going to go. And it was 7 degrees when we got there. It was wintertime, and a lot of things didn't go the way we thought.
You did a cemetery investigation there?
No, this was a farm that she claimed that was on the Trail of Tears, which we knew it wasn't because it's nowhere near where that was.
You did it outside, though, when it was 7 degrees?
We did it outside because we thought,
my God.
Because we knew we'd only be outside for a couple of hours, I told everybody dress accordingly. We'll be out there for about 2 hours. We weren't going to make it long. It was 4 hours to get there the way that we took.
I wouldn't go to that. If any of you invited me, I'd be like, no,
well,
I'm out.
We were excited because we were supposed to do some of it indoors too, which we were inside for a little bit. It's just a whole story, but it ended up being that some things did happen there, but lady's crazier than, she's batshit crazy. And there was a lot, like when we were talking about orbs, she has all these pictures, photo albums of people standing in the barn in the middle of summer with their eyes closed and their arms out. She's like, look at all the ghosts, all the orbs, and that, that's dust and hay. It's just, you don't want to say nothing and be rude to her because she was allowing us in her place. But I'm just sitting there. But the weirdest part was my nickname. So we had seen there'd been tons of groups that have been around longer than us. So we're talking to her, and she showed us fairy photos. That she had fairies that lived on her farm and in her barn. Could tell they were moths because, again, I asked stuff like, well, when did you take these? And it's always in June, July, August, never in winter. She'd never catch any of that stuff in winter because it's bugs. And in the fairy photos, I could tell they were moths. And I'm never one to be rude or mean to anybody. I want everybody to know that. I'm always professional. I'm very kind. The only reason I talk bad about her now is because she was kind of rude to us at the end of the thing. But the point is, she wanted to play some EVPs for us. She said, well, I just had a group here last weekend. All the time she's telling us, now, whatever you release, I need to see it first because I just don't want everybody coming here. But she was having people there every weekend. It was just weird. So I go, okay, we'll listen to some EVPs. We heard a couple. You could kind of hear something, but it was like what some people do where they cut off the EVP, like on Ghost Adventures, and it sounds like a bad kung fu movie where all you hear is and and she's trying to tell us that it's saying something in there and none of us are hearing it. But she played a few, and she said the group here last week got something really weird. Now, I had never met this lady. MySpace was still a thing we were using. We haven't even had Facebook yet. And there's only a few people who knew what my nickname was. And so she played a few, and then this last one, she goes, this one I can't figure out. It's something about a dog. And I was kind of looking at her, and I got about I had about 7 people with me in the group because we were in different locations at the farm. And she plays this EVP, and you hear a whisper. She's like, is there anybody here that'd like to talk to us? It's a girl asking the question. And you hear this male voice grovel in, the big dog is coming. I shit you not. And my group let out a moan. They're like, oh, and they're all looking at me. And she's like, what? What's the matter? And I almost ran out of the house. It kind of frightened me to a point. And my Deb spoke up and said, that's his nickname, is Big Dog. So how in the hell would they know? How the hell would they know?
Right.
Isn't that weird? So that, and then something picked up. I think I told you this story, Tommy, where something picked up my camera and turned it towards the wood pile and shut my camera off. And I was on top of the hill setting cameras up, and I saw somebody moving away from it. Me and Deb did, and we went down and asked our guy, and he wasn't out there. He was in the barn. So those are the only two things that really took place there, outside of the crazy blind horses and the drunk raccoon that was upstairs. It was just a nightmare. So I was preaching for the longest time to tell people, don't chase everything on the internet, because it turns into crazy shit, and people tell you crazy stories, and like you said, some of it just goes left and it's hard to recover from. But we had fun. We still had fun. That was the important part.
Well, I was going to say something, but I want to let everyone know. Oh, Jesus, I'm rambling on here. We're just going all over the place, but I will not be able to from the foreseeable future. I will not be able to do live streams on Sunday nights anymore. As for my new work schedule, so I'm gonna have to figure out a new day to do live streams. I got to figure that out. So this will probably be the last Sunday evening live stream for a hot minute. I do have a new. What I'm trying to do is close this out, because I want to keep rambling. I know Danny's been under the weather and stuff, and Shane, who was on here earlier, he left. So I have a new video coming out Monday, which is tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Michigan, Detroit time, of the Olympia bookstore investigation that our group did. Danny was not in this video. Generally, he is. The past few, he has been. Right. But yeah, that comes out tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Definitely check that out. It's still a really, really good video. If you also want to check out our whole group's video, well, different people from our group, I can link that in the description. We have me, Drew from Living Histories Mysteries, Randy's Real Paranormal, and yeah, I think that's it.
Are you going to be able to join us on the 20th? Or do you got to work?
Yeah, I should be able to, because I'm starting this job. I actually have orientation tomorrow, but since I'm starting this job, I'm going to tell them that date I cannot come into work. So I should be able to get that day off. But from here on out, like I told the group in the group chat, I will not be able to attend Sunday evening investigations. I know it's really because Mark can't do Saturdays and stuff, which to most people that aren't retired and have like a normal work schedule, Friday and Saturday evenings are generally the date that, most people can attend events or parties or investigations. So
I would tell you that I miss those days of working, even though I'm retired, and that's due to medical, because I'd still like to work. But, it's one of those things. So I'm afforded a little more open schedule than you are. But, you got to pay the bills, man. It's understandable.
Yeah, it sucks. But I just want to let everyone know that from here for the foreseeable future, Sunday evenings I will not be able to do live streams. So I'm guessing probably like Friday nights or maybe during the week I'm going to start doing these live streams. So I just want to let everyone know that. I want to thank Danny and Shane for coming on here and telling their interesting history with their group that they've had for over 100 years now.
Yeah, we'll have to have you on. I'll have you on, when you have a free night too, like I said, and we'll just talk, just share.
For sure. I'm always down.
There's too much to share. And like I said, I don't want to come off to anybody that, like you said, I've been around doing this for a while, but I'm still learning too. Trust me. I still drop the ball. And once in a while I'm getting old, so I get touchy. That's all I got to say is I get touchy, and I don't mean anything by it. So everybody, please forgive me. But it's been fun going out with you guys. I look forward to doing more stuff with you. You guys will keep me vital.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And before I get to Danny's stuff, if any of you have any questions or you want to come on to investigation, I'm more than happy to bring people along. My information's in the description. You can follow me on Instagram, Tommy_Tombstone. That's the best way to get hold of me, because Facebook. I'm not really active on there. I'm not a big fan of Facebook. So follow me on Instagram, Tommy_Tombstone. Or you can, if you have a Snapchat, if you're, a youngin or someone my age, you can follow me on Snapchat It's Livin' with Ghosts. It's LIVINWITHGHOSTS. I had to think about that for a second. So yeah, if you have any questions or concerns, or if you're interested in doing paranormal stuff or wanting to come along for a video and stuff, hit me up on there. That's all I got to say. Danny, shout out all your information, your network, and all that jazz.
You can find me at Southern Michigan Paranormals on Facebook. Also, Unrestricted Paranormal, spelled normally, Unrestricted Paranormal on Facebook as well. That's where we mirror a lot of the stuff that we put up on my network. My network is www.unrestrictedparanormal.com. So when you go to spell unrestricted, you're going to spell it differently. So you spell unrest, RXTD.com. You'll scroll down, you'll see a player, you'll see a ton of shows on there. Big Dog Show, different paranormal shows, Sinister Show, which is about true crime. Haunted Mitten has their own page. I have a bunch of different podcasts over there, including this gentleman right here. So this will be posted over on their page, which I think I have under Midwest. So I've combined all you guys into one thing. There's a lot to look at over there. We have pages dedicated to different podcasts and different things that you might be into. I'm talking to a gentleman here in Allegan that does Bigfoot research, which I'm really into. And it's, that's going to be fun to add to the network and maybe get us all out on a Sasquatch hunt, which would be a lot of fun when the weather's better.
Totally.
I'll do the winter camp with them, but I think the rest of you probably want to wait till the weather's better. But it's a great network. And I will tell you that I've got some sponsors on there, which, as far as I see it, this copy of this show, I may take the audio from here with Tommy's permission, and I'll just work it into the circulation, and then you'll be able to hear the audio version of this show on Unrestricted Radio. If you go to unrestrictedradio.com, the ad is, the app is free. The app is free. Tell your friends, your neighbors, and even the family people you don't like. Unrestrictedradio.com, and it's music that other stations in your area won't play. It's stuff that Tommy listens to, which I would imagine that there's some punk and there's some grunge in there and some metal. We have independent artists from around the world. We're hooked up with Reverb Nation. You will hear this program Sunday nights, Saturday nights, and Sunday nights at 9 p.m. I rotate them all out. And it's just a great network, and Stacy and I are looking to get local bands. So Tommy, if you know anybody that's a local band or got local music, they want to be heard, send them over to us and we'll put them on and we'll play them. But that's where you can find me. And of course, with Midwest Parahistorical Society, I'll be running around with these yahoos, causing all sorts of trouble. I'm just mad that I missed the Olympic thing because I saw the debauchery that went on at after party. And I was just like, man, I could have been there and had a drink. But no, got to do family stuff. Mm-hmm. That's important too, though.
Yeah, we got to check out the basement there too.
Yes,
he gave us the tour, which was super, super cool.
Yeah, and these guys, you'll be involved in some cool stuff we got coming up. I'm not going to give it out, but we got some cool things on the horizon.
Yeah, so like I said, and most of the stuff he said, all like as far as his network and like his social media stuff, is all in the description, in my description, bio, whatever you want to call it, as well as mine and our whole group. I don't know if I mentioned this during this live stream, but Danny is a part of our group, the Midwest Parahistoric Society. I get confused because this is what pisses me off about Drew. Is it the Midwest Parahistoric Society or is it the Midwest Parahistorical Society?
Yeah, he changes it.
Drew never makes up his.
I changed it with me too. And
I think it's his dementia.
Yeah, and then he gets on me about mentioning it or mentioning the living history thing. And I'm like, well, which one do you want? I don't know which one you want posted. Make up your mind.
I consider it just parahistoric. I think that's fine. I don't think it needs to be parahistorical. I think just parahistoric. But yeah, thanks everyone who go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It's been fun doing my stuff with you.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone who joined and had questions. Thanks, Cuppy, for all your input and stuff. Like I said, if you want to contact me, I said all my stuff. It's in the bio. And all the stuff for Danny as well as Shane, who was on here earlier. Thanks everyone for coming on. And like I said, I have a new video tomorrow. I also have another live stream coming up here soon as well with this guy who collects oddities, which should be a really cool live stream. He's from New Jersey, Spook House. So stay tuned. We got more investigations coming up soon with me, myself, Danny, and the whole group and all that jazz. So I hope everyone has a good night and enjoy your fun, hellacious work week this week,
Yep.
as I will myself. So unless you're retired like Danny. And
Yeah, just keep your eyes to the sky. Happy haunting, and if you can't be smarter and kinder, just be quieter. That's my message. All right.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.